You are listening to Spaceboy Universe on the SBU network.
Explore the universe with Spaceboy and Sir Lana.
Minutes, 21 seconds. 5-second tone followed by a 1-second pause.
You are listening to Spaceboy Universe.
Okay, gang, let's go.
From the space city called Houston, Texas, welcome to Spaceboy Universe, featuring Spaceboy and the lovely Sir Lana. So strap in and prepare for launch sequence.
Greetings and salutations. I'm Spaceboy.
I'm Sir Lana.
And this is Spaceboy Universe. It is April 8, 2016, and we're on show number 131. And tonight's special guest is David Murray, a.k.a. the 8-Bit Guy from YouTube. As always, follow us on Twitter. That's at the SB Universe. Follow Sir Lana at Sir Lana. Follow me, Spaceboy, at Spaceboy Music. Of course, follow the network that carries all our wonderful program, and that is at the SBU Network. Hey, remember to hashtag your tweets at hashtag SB Universe and hashtag Space Cadets. Remember, if you want to hang out with the Space Cadets, you can do so by going to spaceboyuniverse.com and sbunetwork.com and click on the dancing chat bubble in the player, and that will get you in with all the cool kids. In addition to Twitter, you can find the Universe on Facebook, Tumblr, SoundCloud, iTunes, and YouTube. And also, I'm under the understanding that we're now on iHeartMedia. Just look for Spaceboy Universe, and that'll get you into that location. Speaking of YouTube, you can find more than the Spaceboy Universe of archive of shows. There is video content from Spaceboy Music, video interviews, 2-Bit Gamers, and so much more. Can't catch the show live? No problemo. Take SBU on the go with you via Spreaker, SoundCloud, iTunes, and iHeartMedia. And on that note, I ask the lovely Sir Lana, how are you tonight?
How did we manage that, by the way?
Well, it's a long process. Spreaker gives you the option to try to get connected to iHeartMedia, and then you have to go through this process. And so I guess after, we tried it once, and, this is the second time we tried it. The first time we tried it, I guess it was because of something to do with music and stuff, and so we got denied. I think it was a night we played a bunch of music, and so that was the first time we got denied. So some time passed, and then so we let it go and tried to re-register again. And I guess when I re-registered again, that was like two and a half months ago or something like that.
I didn't know you did that.
So one of the qualifications is that you have to have a certain amount of shows under your belt to put it on iHeartMedia. So as I was registering the show for tonight's show, it gave me the option that the show will go up on iHeartMedia. So hopefully, as we continue on, I will give our Space Cadets more information on how to listen to us on iHeartMedia, which is exciting. Because we'll
have to verify it happened.
Yeah, we'll have to verify all. But I'm getting the signal on when I register the show. For tonight's show, at least.
Well, we'll see if it goes through.
We'll see how it goes. But I'm excited because, it's been a long process to get us on iHeartMedia. And so it's really cool because, we're on.
Actually, I thought we just forgotten about it and just said, oh, well, there's plenty of other platforms.
We're on Stitcher. We're on
TuneIn, SoundCloud, YouTube,
TalkStream Live,
iTunes.
I mean, we're all over the place.
That's plenty of options.
YouTube, especially.
Of course, Spreaker app.
Mm-hmm. So that's exciting. You know what else is exciting, Solana?
Well, I was just thinking, being on iHeart means there's a greater chance my dad could find it.
So we'll have to make sure we do clean shows.
Well, we do anyway.
Yeah. So I'm excited to announce that the time has come again for this year, and we are going to Comic Palooza.
The difference is
we will be there
all 3 days, all freaking day long. We're going to die. So I'm going to take maybe like Wednesday to Wednesday off. Because load-in is Wednesday, Thursday.
Yeah, so I'm off Thursday to Monday from my job.
You should have gotten that Wednesday, too.
Well, I wasn't really quite thinking in the sense of, but...
Well, I'll take it off, and if something needs to get done, I know how to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How to get there, where that stuff is.
Where to park.
Where
to do this, where
at
to
the
do
crack.
that.
I'm used to getting up at the crack of dawn anyway, so... And I was told that's a good strategy, is get up at the crack of dawn and get down there.
So as we move forward, you'll probably start to hear some more advertisement for us being there. And
I think the constructions might be done in front of the George R. Brown, too.
Yeah, I think they're done up there, so that'll be great to see.
Much better.
Yeah, but it is a pretty big deal, and and the fact that we're doing 3 days instead of the 1 day, and I'll be in the astronaut outfit again, probably with a mask on, and I was trying. If I could swing it, great. If I can't, not. I've actually been thinking of another costume to wear, too, for Comic Palooza.
I don't think you can get it in time. I don't think you can get that done in time.
But even if I don't, I'm still thinking about getting that costume.
Yeah, there's other occasions. There's
Yeah.
always next year.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe there will be a Space City Con. I don't think it's going to happen ever
if
again.
If it was going to happen, it would have already happened.
And they would have to rebrand it to get away from the stink of
The stank.
the scandalous.
So, but yeah, we're excited. We're going to be there live and in charge. We're going to be giving away crap.
Now, when we say we're going to be there, meaning we got a table on the floor, courtesy of the coordinator of Houston Mini Maker Fair.
Yes, we have a strong bond with them, and we're always very supportive of the mini.
It's a big deal for us.
And so, yeah, it is a big deal. And, the traffic alone that's going to be going through there for the 3 days that we'll be there at that event is going to be great. We're going to be giving away, things you've heard and seen on the universe. Where we're going to be giving away some free Spaceboy music and Funko Pops. It's just going to be crazy. We're going to do interviews.
Anything else we can find in this house to give away?
Yeah. I don't want to mention. I mentioned something about the cat, and I don't think I'll go there. But yeah, we'll be giving away a lot of stuff and having a good time and taking pictures and all that. And it's going to be a challenge to say. Well, by the end of the day, it'll be tiring, wouldn't you? Think so?
Yeah, we're going to burn some calories into, but so many good things came out of last year's Comic Palooza for us. People we met, little friendships, partner networking we did, and now we got some people to look for. Even Daryl Sims shows up at these things.
Yeah,
believe it or not.
That was funny because
as himself.
When I saw him last year at Comic Palooza, I said, "Solana, I think that looks like Daryl Sims."
And you thought maybe it was a Daryl Sims cosplay.
I thought it was a Daryl Sims cosplay.
Really obscure cosplay.
I was like, okay, well, at least somebody got it right, And what's funny is that when we went to go see Daryl, and not too long ago out in
We'll go
Webster,
see him again.
It was like I brought it up to him, and he kind of laughed and said, "Yeah, I was there, and I was checking things out." And
he likes it.
Yeah, he likes it. So that would be great to see him again, and
he's got another meetup the end of this month, so if we go down there, we'll tell him where we'll be there, and maybe he'll come by and take a picture.
Yeah, so it's amazing how the universe you just go with the flow of the universe and where it takes you and the things you see and hear and do. Where just like I said, and Solana saying, a year later, This is pretty big, huge. I know last year we had got our exercise in because the media place where we were, set up was pretty much like on the other side of the building.
Like you've got one entrance you can get into the main convention floor because they have to, police that. And then where you can leave out of and then where you can go for the lounge for media, it's like half a mile opposite of that.
Which is going to be great this year because we'll have a place on the ground floor
to chill at.
And
but there's just no way we can sit there for 8 hours a day for 3 days and not have food.
Well, I'm not saying we're not. I'm not going to chain you to that table. We're still going to do things like we did, but we'll have a base of operations on the floor to go out and make quick videos, quick interviews, bring people back to our area and do interviews on the spot there. And so I'm just jazzed over the fact that this is originally what we wanted
to sit down on the convention floor. What
we wanted to do in the first place, and that's going to happen. So, as we get closer, more announcements. I guess we'll be giving away a discount code for people if they want to get tickets to it. We're still working on that with the people we're affiliated with, and so. But yeah, just keep tuned into the Space Boy universe, and you'll find out more information as we get it and pass it on to you. So what else we got, Solana?
Speaking of cool things we're going to get to do, let's see. Next Thursday, we're going to get to see another Riff Tracks live, and it's going to be painful.
Well,
painful.
I had an opportunity to check out the link to what we're going to go see. Do you want to go ahead and give some background and story on that?
Oh, it's it's so terrible. It's Samurai Cop. He speaks fluent Japanese. You just need to go to rifftrax.com, rifftrax.com, and look at the preview clips for it. It's so bad.
Well, Solana,
it's so bad.
There is. I posted this on our wall, on the SBU wall, on Twitter, so people can kind of link there and go to check it out. And there's this one clip I saw where the two guys are going to start battling it out, and I guess the good guy looks so ridiculous. I mean, obviously he doesn't know kung fu out of his rear end, on this one, but he's like trying to go through all these motions, and I saw better acting in the room, to be honest with you.
Oh my God, that's bad. Well, we already know that's going to be painful, but what's interesting is this is the first time that I went to go purchase tickets, and it's through Fathom Events, and you go to Fathom's website, and it takes you through to your local movie theater's website. And, of course, ours is in the mall, which is really super close to where we live. And this is the first time it said, okay, now choose your seats in the theater. And I'm like, wait a minute, what's this? They have gone in our local theater in the mall and switched from the traditional movie theater stadium seating to recliners. Full-on recliner loungers. So now you have to it's reserved seating now. But I probably should have picked the one over by Dave & Buster's.
Well, I mean, either one's fine. I like going to the Cinemark at the Memorial City Mall.
That's the one.
And just because, you got the food court there, and, you can eat what you want. I can get what I want, but we usually get the same thing.
But the food at the Regal Cinema, Edwards Mark E, is pretty decent for theater food, like actual small meals you can get.
Yeah, it's not too bad.
They haven't moved to the recliners yet.
They have the Nathan hot dogs there. They have jumbo pretzels.
Surprisingly good chicken strips.
They make a little food action going on.
Waffle fries.
Oh,
one time they had pizza or something there, and just little small meals you can get while you're eating, while you're watching. Things like that. So this should be interesting.
Well, I like going to either one, but it'll be interesting to see the reclining seating that they just put in.
And if we don't like it, we don't have to ever go back there again.
So I read a quick thing here on the Canadians, and maybe our favorite Canadians can weigh in on this issue. Why does Canadian milk come in plastic bags?
I saw that, but I didn't see that. You know what I'm saying?
The AV Club is reporting this. And I'd be curious to know, because here in America, I can only speak for us, our milk comes in a carton. Whether it's cow milk or almond milk or silk
soy milk or goat milk.
Yeah, it's all in a thing. So I can only
carton or a plastic.
I can only figure that it might be maybe something recyclable in a situation, but our fellow Canadians that listen, chime in on that one. Why does your milk come in plastic bags?
Milk bags.
Milk bags. Brings all the boys to the yard. Kind of sad news. I hate to switch it from something funny, but Don Rickles passed away. Now,
yeah, but it seems like the man was living forever.
Well,
I thought he was a vampire for a while.
He was 90, at his time of passing. But I bring him up because he was the king of. He could put you down.
He's the only one that gets away with it in this day and age.
Yeah,
because people—that's what he's known for his entire life.
And but he is in one of my all-time favorite movies. Can you guess what kind of movie it is?
Is it a submarine movie?
It is. You got it. You know me so well.
He was in a lot of war-ish movies,
he was young during that time period. It was a movie called Run Silent, Run Deep with Burt Lancaster and Clark Gable.
You got a thing for submarines, anyway.
I don't know what it is. I like submarine movies, so I wouldn't want to have been in the secret silent service, as they call it. But because being under all that water and stuff, but he was in that movie, but over the years, he was a great comedian. He just had a knack that, he could just come out with these things that it was just unbelievable. And one of his best friends was Frank Sinatra,
the Rat Pack.
Yeah, the Rat Pack, and there was a story that he was. Telling, I guess he was on the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson at one time.
A lot. He was
and on that particular night, Frank was on there too as well. And so Frank starts to tell the story about Don and how Don comes over and he says, "Hey, could you just stop by my table? I'm with this girl and trying to make an impression with her and all this." And he said, "Yeah, sure, I'll come over." So Frank gets done with his dinner and he starts to go over there, and he says, "Hey, how's it going, Don?" And Don turns and says, "Can you see I'm eating here, Frank? Don't you have something else to do?" And so, it was just that kind of way Don was, and it was pretty funny. And
I never saw this documentary somebody made about him called Mr. Warmth. Mm-hmm. It was a really big deal. I might try to find that anywhere.
And real quick, Jimmy Kimmel had a good relationship with him before his passing too, and there's a video out there of him talking about him, and it's kind of like he's choked up and everything, and he someone my age, I'm going to kind of miss him because he was really funny. Toy Story, he played Mr. Potato Head, mm-hmm. But he's been in other things as well.
He had his own theme song whenever he went on to talk shows.
Mm-hmm. So, Don Rickles, 90, passed away, and sorry to see him go.
I would have thought he was much older than that.
What else you got on your plate?
Well, didn't realize this happened because I'm kind of out of touch. We don't have network cable anymore. We've cut the cord 3 or 4 years ago. But I didn't realize on April 1st... that supposedly the premiere episode of season 3 of Rick and Morty was aired on April 1st, and everybody thought it was a joke. Like, well, this isn't the real beginning of season 3, so nobody knows what to make of it. But you watched it, and then I found it on my own independently, and I watched it twice. and of course, it's... lives up to everything you expect if you're already a fan of the show. A lot of stuff to ponder over after I watched some fan theories about the show. One being that the main character Rick seems to be self-aware. He knows he's in a TV show, mm-hmm. and he's in a cartoon, and that's part of the reason why he's dead inside and kind of just angry, and he can't kind of escape this universe. So, really enjoyed that. That's back. And then Archer Dreamland premiered too, where, you know, Archer's in a coma, and while he's in this coma, he's dreaming this whole alternative reality that's set in like
1940s.
maybe the 40s.
Yeah.
But, you know, with Archer, you never know what time period it was set in, because they had like old technology and new technology. So it was like an anachronistic mashup.
You know, it's they're going to be the last season for Archer, and so, you know,
It's good.
I think it's done its run, and I'm happy with it, and we'll, you know, watch this season. And you know, the only thing I would hope out of an Archer thing would be a live version of Archer on the movie screen. But beyond that, you know, it's bittersweet to see this season, knowing that it's the last of the season. Now,
whereas Rick and Morty said, he goes, if it takes 9 seasons, I'm going to find that special sauce.
Now, speaking of season premieres, sometimes very soon, Better Call Saul comes back.
That's this month sometime.
Well, I think it's
maybe the next week or two.
I think over the next week or two, exactly. So it'll be nice to see what happens to Jimmy as he transforms into Saul, and the evolution of that. And then,
how
of
long
course,
it's going to take.
Gus is back. You know, and that'll be
Pollos Hermanos.
Yes, and so that should be interesting. But it'll be nice to see that program come back. Now, another thing, my binge watching. You know, I've been neglecting a lot of my other shows I've been trying to get into because I've been so deep into Navy CSI. I know Sherlana is rolling her eyes over there, but, you know, it's kept me busy.
Yeah, it keeps you busy and occupied, and yeah. So I know where you are and what you're doing, and you don't pay attention to what I'm doing.
I'm on season 10, almost to the end of that season, and there's still 2 more seasons. There's the season that's going on live on CBS right now, and then there's 1 more season on Netflix. I have not yet had a chance to see the Iron Fist yet. What you doing over there?
Don't worry about what I'm doing.
You always look like you're having some kind of...
Don't worry about what I'm doing.
But anyway, that's where my Netflix binge watching has been. I mean, there's several problems, 7 programs that I've been dying to get into, and I guess as soon as I'm done with this, which it won't be too much longer, then I'm going to shift gears, get back on the Marvel band, and, you know, because the garlic of the galaxy. Tongue-tied tonight I am.
You're hopeless.
Guardians of the Galaxy is coming up. And,
yeah, I'm kind of jazzed about that.
Yeah, so we've talked a lot about that. Was there anything else Carrie Fisher is confirmed to appear in the...
they must have already done her...
I guess they're going to do that. Hey, there was a UFO spotted in Houston, I think on Friday, according to our UFO Jane is reporting.
We just don't go outside, so I don't guess we'll ever see anything.
Well, I was on that side of town close to that time period, but I don't... Catalina, Garlic of the Galaxy, yes.
That's a parody.
Oh, my God. See what I've started?
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, what else do we got here?
What about iPhone 8 being delayed?
Yeah, the delay, and then plus I'm going to be kind of...
The reason why.
I'm kind of... you want to tell our audience?
The reason why is they're trying to hammer out the camera. The camera is supposed to take 3D images, or rather it's supposed to simulate 3D depth of field.
Plus another thing on the iPhone front is that... I'd like to talk to David tonight about what his thoughts about the repair of like iPhones and not being able to repair them. Seems to be a big topic because there's a lot of people out there that make a living off of repairing. We've seen it with repairing the glass. The home keys, because they're so easy to break because of how thin they are, among other things. So it'll be interesting to see what his take on that, since he's definitely, it seems like he's like an Apple kind of guy. So, All right.
What?
Yeah, what? Did I catch you off guard? Was there anything else on the plate? Okay.
Sorry, I wasn't expecting that. Sorry. Weird technical glitch. What do I have on here? You see that thing I posted on my Facebook wall?
Did you see that thing? No, I don't.
Apparently they had a cyclone or something hit Australia.
Oh, yes. I remember seeing it now.
And when that happens, it doesn't just affect people. It affects all life. So things were fleeing in the wake of, I guess, maybe it was flooding and stuff. There's this guy who took video of...
I'm a little concerned. Are you like watching the video right now, or is what in the world
Don't
is
worry
going
about what I'm
on
doing.
over there?
Don't worry about what
I'm
I'm
afraid
doing.
you're about to fall out of your chair.
I'm not. It's this camera is on.
It's on. What is it doing on?
I don't know. It's freaking me out. There. Okay. But there's this guy's taking his cell phone video, and there's all these insects and mostly spiders and millipedes are all fleeing, and they're crawling up this guy's leg. He's got on like flip flops, his bare leg. I'm like, what is wrong with this man?
Well, at least you could see it going up his leg. Could you imagine if he was wearing pants or something and one of those critters got up there?
But he's sitting there filming it, so he knows it's happening. I'm like, no, don't do that. I mean, it's mostly spiders, but it's like centipedes and little. There was like a mass exodus of insects.
Mm-hmm. Now, okay, going back to what I'm kind of concerned. Why is the camera going on those?
I don't know. You've got this little piece of.
Do I have something on it?
Yeah, but it's not covering it entirely.
Okay, well, it should be just covering the camera part. I mean,
it's not covering it entirely. And it was picking me up. What threw me off is on Skype, where it's supposed to show our show's logo.
Yeah.
It had a picture of an empty chair, and I was trying to change it to the logo because I put it on the desktop so I could grab it. And while I was doing that, it was looking at me, and I was freaking out.
So it's not the CIS.
Dennis says he's watching.
I saw that, and it threw me off. And still need an explanation of why your milk is in a bag.
Tell us, Dennis, why? Why?
Yeah. Why, you Canadians? Why do you keep your milk in a bag? So
is it to remind you of where it comes from?
Well, on that note, should we go ahead and hit the bump and?
That's your call, man. I got nothing to do with that.
I know that we're expecting a call in. Let's see here as I'm punching.
Is it
button.
A long one?
It's 4 minutes and 20 seconds.
That should be enough time.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and do that bump. All right, people, you're listening to the SBU network, and we are SBU, which is Spaceboy Universe, and I'm Spaceboy, and that's Solana over there. That likes to lean over on her chair to fall out.
Well, I didn't want to be seen.
So we'll be right back, and hopefully we'll get our guest on the phone, and so don't go anywhere.
This is author Gordon Root. You are listening to the Spaceboy Universe.
This is K28, and I'm listening to Spaceboy Universe.
Hi, y'all. This is Lori calling from Texas, and I love listening to Spaceboy Universe.
Hey, this is Dave Cruz, host of Beyond the Strange, and you're listening to Spaceboy Universe.
This is Wendy. I'm listening to Spaceboy Universe.
Hey, y'all. This is Lorelai DeLille. I listen to Spaceboy Universe. Don't you? Tell your mom and them I said hi.
The epic battle begins this Friday. Direct from ringside at Laser Death Melt. It's Bot versus Bot in Galaxy's 2-ton weight championship, where your challenger, Good Bot, will face the reigning champion, Bad Bot. You're terminated. Reserve seating starting at $30. 2-drink minimum, where ladies don't get in free. This is an SBU production. You're listening to Space Boy Universe.
You are listening to Spaceboy Universe on the SBU network.
Explore the universe with Spaceboy and Sirlana.
Ever seen an extraterrestrial? It can be hard to believe they exist unless you've seen one for yourself. What if I told you I've seen them my whole life, but have never had a witness who shared the encounter with me? Now, what if I told you I saw 4 of them, 2 with blue skin, and there are over 20 witnesses to this CE5 event? My new book, The Blue Beings, Visitation at the UFO Conference, documents actual accounts from real witnesses, many of which have gone on record to attest to this otherworldly reality. Be a part of the quantum paradigm shift that is taking place right now. Go to johnpolkmedia.com to get your copy of The Blue Beings, Visitation at the UFO Conference, on sale right now at johnpolkmedia.com. That's JOHNPOLK media.com.
Hello Space Cadets. It is announcer Savannah. I want to tell you that as a dedicated member of the SBU team, you always want to look your best. Do it in a Spaceboy Universe t-shirt. Get yours at spaceboyuniverse.com by clicking the banner on the website.
Greetings, Space Cadets! Let's see what's in the sky tonight in the Spaceboy Universe. Tonight, in the eastern sky, we have Spaceboy Universe rising above the horizon in glorious splendor. And in the west, we can see Sirlanus Majoris, which is visible at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, just below the K28 belt. So keep your eyes on the sky and listen to Spaceboy Universe.
David Murray, aka the 8-Bit Guy, is known for his fun and informative YouTube channel, The 8-Bit Guy. On this channel, he focuses on retro technology from the 80s, 90s, and the 2000s. He restores old computers, synthesizer keyboards, and various music equipment. He also demonstrates how old technology functioned, and he's got a few off-the-wall videos for fun. His second channel, 8-Bit Keys, showcases performances of fun music on toy keyboards and other synthesizers from the 80s and 90s and today. He'll also review equipment for those who may be considering making purchases of this. You can find him on YouTube as The 8-Bit Guy and 8-Bit Keys, and on Facebook, facebook.com/the8-bit guy, the 8-Bit Guy. So please welcome David Murray.
Welcome, David. How are you tonight?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on.
Well, thank you. David, we want to get to know you. Sirlana and I have been watching you for some time on YouTube because we love YouTube. It beats watching regular television. And, every once in a while we find somebody such as yourself that really captivates our attention. And so we wanted to let our audience know who you are. And so can you kind of give us a little bit of background about you and as far as who you are? And then, of course, we'll dive into some of your things from the 8-Bit Guy show that you do and the 8-Bit Keys.
I'm not really exactly sure what you want to know. I'm 41 years old. I've lived most of my life here in all my life here in Texas, the Dallas-Fort Worth area, to be specific. I grew up, obviously, in the, most of my childhood was in the 80s, and, I had lots of, different computers and gaming systems and stuff of the time, and, I guess I just never grew out of those, and, I've obviously moved on to, bigger and better computers, but I still find myself always going back to the to the ones from the 80s, because I just love the personality of electronics from that time period, and I love exploring some of the technology that I didn't even have when I was that age. Obviously I couldn't afford to have all of it. So, I even enjoy going back and finding systems that I never had, or maybe didn't even know anybody who had, and kind of exploring them today to see what they were like. And, so that's, I guess, more or less what I do on my channel. It's just I kind of turned a hobby into a profession.
Yes, that's pretty amazing, too. You were able to quit your day job, so to speak?
Yeah. In fact, kind of a coincidence about that is just yesterday I did a career day at my daughter's school. She's in the 8th grade, and they had various parents come in to talk to the students about what they do for a career. And when they they asked any parents that wanted to do it to let them know if they were interested. So I told the counselor, this was back like 2 months ago, I said, well, I've been in IT my whole life, so if you want me to come up there and talk about IT, then, I can do that. I've had lots of experience in various different aspects of that. And I said, but I'm not actually doing that anymore. I'm now doing, as of this month, which this was 2 months ago, but I'm like, as of this month, I'm now doing YouTube full time. Well, she actually got really interested in that and said, no, I want you to come talk about that. I want you to come tell everybody what it's like to do YouTube for a living. So I actually I went in there and talked to several hundred students yesterday, and I told them that I had turned I had made a career out of being a professional nerd, and so they were pretty interested in how I've done that.
That's pretty cool. That's like a dream as we sit here. Nerds, we're a little bit older than you. Not much, but,
Yeah, but a little older.
But we kind of had the same background, introduced to technology. I was introduced to it a little bit later in the 80s. My dad brought home this, 80 to 100-pound computer, which was supposed to be our first, quote-unquote, portable computer, the compact, which had the full-size keyboard that snapped up into the little monitor disk drive space, and you turn it over and you're supposed to lug this monster around, and that's portable. And that was my first introduction, and we didn't have Windows, we just had DOS. So I didn't know any better before Windows 3.1 came around.
And one of my first computers was a TRS-80 with 2 nice floppies in it, big floppies, and writing programs. I've seen you even do one where it's the 10 print. I guess back in that time, that was one of the first programs, easy programs to teach, kids at that time. So, it's been a rich, I guess, road through that retro programming. So what, as far as, I was like watching some of your videos, and another kind of curious thing that popped up is Mike your brother, or is he a cousin, or?
I do have a brother named Mike. Okay. He runs a YouTube channel called The Geek Pub.
Right. In fact, I came across that, and I was kind of fascinated because I saw some of the videos you've done. You've gone to the Geek Pub to I guess prep certain things for projects and things like that, and I found it interesting. And then of course we saw another video, and I don't know if it was him or not, where you took 2 computers to put them together, and you were playing. Was it Nuke?
Duke Nukem. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Wasted so many hours of my young life on Duke Nukem, Doom, and Wolfenstein. Just out in DOS.
That was actually a different person.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But it was it was very interesting to see you I guess building things, and I guess a part of your process as far as restoration and mods and repairs, and it's just been quite fascinating with some of your videos that we've come across where Sir Lana and I we kind of laughed where she made it sound like okay, I'm gonna pull it apart, but I'm going to rewire it and make it better.
I was thinking some parts is like kind of reminds me of Tim Allen's character, Tim the Toolman Taylor. It's like, he's like, oh, it came to me like this, and like, well, the first thing it did was open it up. And I was thinking like, so I rewired
it. So tell us a little bit about your program, the 8-Bit Guy, and how that all started for you, David.
Okay, well, actually, it really started as the iBook guy, and a lot of my longtime subscribers will remember me going by that name. And it's, I guess, a little mundane, but I used to run a weekend business where I don't even entirely know how I got started doing it. It just was an idea I tried one day, and it seemed to work. I wanted to make a little extra money, and I had tried repairing computers for people, but that's actually a really difficult business to get into. And the sad part about that is as an individual, even someone like me, I was actually really good at it, but I could not compete with all the local big box electronic stores, even though they charged as much as 5 or 10 times the amount of money to do actually not as well of a job as I could do for somebody. And it, because they just had the enormous advertising budget and presence and whatnot. So one of the things I eventually realized is a better way to make money repairing computers is not trying to offer the repair business, but rather to just buy the stuff broken for little to nothing and then repair it and resell it. And so I actually found that was far more successful. So I started doing that, and I realized at one point that if I just concentrated on a single model of computer, it would be more efficient because I would be really good at taking that machine apart and putting it back together really quickly. Plus, I would have plenty of spare parts around. Whereas if you tried to deal with tons of different computers, you would have to stock or find parts for all these different computers. And so I just decided to concentrate on the Apple iBook, which was a good model to concentrate because at that time it was coming off lease on a lot of company leases and stuff, and I could get them really cheap. And so I just started repairing them and reselling them, and that was actually a pretty good business. I did it for several years, and but one of the big problems was a lot of my income was coming from places like eBay, and they I could sell a computer on there, but I'd spend $40 in fees just to sell a computer. So I thought, well, I could probably increase my profits if I sold them on a website, and then So I set up a website, and I'm like, well, I got to figure out a way to get some traffic over to that website. So I thought, well, why don't I create a few educational videos about these iBooks? Maybe that will drive some traffic over to the website. And, it didn't work, actually. But the people loved the videos, and they kept asking me to make more and make more. And so even after I had quit, that business was kind of lucrative for a while, but the iBook obviously became obsolete. I moved to the MacBook again, and it started to become obsolete. And I think when the iPad came onto the market, it really kind of killed my business. So I just kind of moved away from that, but people still kept asking me to make more videos. So I did, but I kind of started to run out of ideas. I mean, there's only so many videos you can make about an Apple iBook or a MacBook, right? So, I'm like, well, I've got to start making videos about something else because I do enjoy making the videos and people enjoy watching them. So I kind of moved to the retro scene because that's something that's, I guess I'll have an almost endless source of material I can talk about with that, and people seem to like it, so I kept doing it. I changed my name to the 8-Bit Guy, and that was a few years back, and, well, here I am.
And so you are, and I guess your subscriber level is pretty impressive. You have quite a few followings, to say the least. And he's got a YouTube play button in the background, so he's on the map. He means business. It's been interesting to see. When you finally said I'm going to go ahead and do this full time and quit my day job, kind of thing. I will say that I was like, well, okay, cool.
It can happen if you've got the right
and plus
product, so to
plus
speak.
Looking, Sirlon and I were always talking about we need content, we need this, we need more content, and so we being tapped into that content coming from you, it meant we were going to get more of you on there talking about various things. And when I say various things that we are definitely interested in, like tech and mods and repairs, restoration of how to do things, and
that's what I want to. Where did you learn how to do all the restoration and, when you go to like a motherboard and you desolder and resolder and rewire, how did you learn to do all that? Were you the kid that took apart your toys?
Yeah, pretty much. That's just people ask me that. I really don't have a good answer for it. It's just one of those skills I, learned over time. plenty of trial and error, lots of failures, lots of things I destroyed in the process of trying to fix it over the years. Fortunately, I have a pretty good idea of what my capabilities are now, so when I start something like that, I have a pretty good idea whether I can fix it or not. But, even sometimes still today, like I did one recently with replacing all the capacitors on a Mac Plus, and I even told the audience right there before I turned it on, I was like, this is something I've never done before. I got my fire extinguisher here because it is a high voltage analog piece of equipment. I'm taking precautions. I think it's going to work, but I'm not infallible with that kind of thing. But I do like to I don't like to hide stuff like that. I don't try to portray myself as being a magician with this stuff. If it fails, and I've had 2 or 3 projects that have failed, and I went ahead and completed the video anyway, just so people could learn from what I did and what didn't work for me.
You seem like
I also, as far as the cleaning thing, though, believe it or not, a lot of the skills I got from that is back between the year of, 2000 and 2005, I worked as the service manager at a computer store here, and that store bought and sold mostly used and off-lease equipment and stuff like that, and so they would pass all that stuff through my department before, because I would have to, even if, stuff they bought, I would have to test it, make sure it worked before we could, put it out for people to buy. And I just didn't like putting out equipment on the floor to sell that looked dirty or had marker residue or stickers, labels and stuff like that on it. So I was always trying to figure out ways to clean that stuff up and make it look better before it goes out on the shelf. And after the 5 years I worked there, I'd actually developed quite a few good techniques for doing that. The RetroBrite thing, which is kind of the staple of my channel now, that somebody else figured that out. But I figured out a lot of the other little methods and tricks I used to get off, everything from marker residue and paint and all kinds of other things off of off the cases.
Yeah, it shows in your videos that you're very meticulous in what you do, and it's always fascinating to see.
You can tell somebody who's meticulous by the way they go through the cable binding and wrapping.
Oh yes, what is it? The straps and all
zip
that
ties,
zip ties, exactly.
The Velcro.
And
where we're just just shove it in there.
Yeah, nobody's going to see these wires. So
it's only us. Who cares?
So when is it sounds like that you definitely dived into the Apple products. When was it, I guess, at a time in your life that you thought, hey, I really like Apple and I really want to kind of specialize in that? What grabbed you into that part versus, say, something like Windows-based, or I'm just assuming based on what we're seeing?
Well, that's actually a little bit of a misconception. In fact, the irony behind that is if you go back to the 1980s, I actually hated Apple with a passion. And I would argue, there were probably only 6 kids in my school that even had a computer. And, back in the 80s, and a lot of them did have Apples, and we had Apples in the schools themselves, so I was familiar with them. But I had a Commodore 64 at home, later a 128, and later an Amiga. And to me, the Apples were just incredibly inferior, both the graphics and the sound, and and it enraged me because we would go into class and, the kids would see the Apple sitting over in the corner of a classroom and they'd always like, wow, I want to go and play on the computer. It's so cool. And I'm always sitting there thinking, that's the crappiest computer ever. I can't imagine why you'd want to go play on that, But, yeah, they didn't have the frame of reference that I did. But the thing about it is, though, what I didn't understand and fully appreciate during the 80s was that the Apple II design was actually a product of the 70s. Mm-hmm. And the Commodore I had was obviously a much newer product, and so, I didn't realize that there was the gap. The school had those computers for years, and so, I didn't fully appreciate it in the way that I do now when I deal with the old Apple computers and stuff. But when we come to the more modern era with Apples, actually I was a Windows and even Linux user for quite some time. I really didn't start getting into Macs until probably like 2007 or something like that, 2008 maybe. And part of the reason, believe it or not, is I just got so fed up with the constant issues I was having with malware infections on both my computer and everybody I knew. In fact, it had gotten to the point being, hey, I'm the IT person in the family, right? So anytime anybody's computer would break down, which was usually due to some kind of spyware, adware, or malware infection, they'd come to me. And it got to the point where almost every day I was having to work on somebody's computer, and often for free. And it was really, really getting frustrating. And so, I tried out a Mac, and because I'd heard that, hey, maybe they don't have these problems, and sure enough, that made an enormous difference. Now, admittedly, I think that the problems that Windows machines have with that, well, it's still around, but I think it's gotten a lot better the last 7 or 8 years than it was. I think that was kind of the peak of the problem back then, when it was just about getting out of control and just driving me nuts. But I think that's kind of what drove me over there. But then I got to where I actually liked the interface. I liked the user interface and the simplicity and the stability and the speed and just everything seemed to work properly. I didn't have any driver problems and stuff. And of course, I still had to work with Windows machines at work constantly, so it's not like I ever got out of that aspect of the computer industry. But I guess I'd kind of fallen in favor with Apple. What's interesting, though, is I'm actually kind of halfway debating now about switching back to Windows.
I'm glad we brought up this subject, because there is a thing out there right now, and I don't know if you've read about this, where Apple's really tying things down to a point where people who make their living off of fixing gadgets, such as iPhones and other Apple products, to where it disables the product in whole. How do you feel about that?
Well, I'm not a fan. Obviously, I like repairable electronics. That's something I've mentioned several times in my YouTube videos about stuff from the 80s, is how easy it is to repair things compared to modern-day equipment. But a lot of that is simply due to trying to figure out cheaper ways to produce the product, and that often, in the end result, is a product that's less repairable. But in the case of what you're talking about, it's almost deliberate. And I'm not a fan of that at all.
What's their angle? They're trying to you have to bring it to an Apple dealer to get it fixed, or force you to buy a new one?
Or both. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not really sure.
All right, we're getting close to the top of the hour, so let's go ahead and take our first break. So hang right there. You're listening to Spaceboy Universe. I'm Spaceboy, she's Sirlana, and we'll be right back. You're listening to SBU on the SBU-N. That's the SBU network. You can tune in on the SBUnetwork.com and, of course, SpaceboyUniverse.com. And the playback will be available after the show ends at midnight. And, of course, that'll be all gravy. Right, Sir Lana?
Absolutely.
So where were we?
Are you familiar, David, with Moore's Law?
Sure, yeah.
Have you found that to be true? Since like us, you've seen what computers, how they were in the 70s till today, but it seems like to me it did like that until the 90s. In the 90s, it seems like it went off the charts almost, with the difference between, I guess, with the advent of the internet to where we are now.
Well, I actually did a whole video on this about, maybe a year ago or so, and I actually charted it out graphically and showed the constant increase in, well, it's really an exponential increase in both processing power and RAM. However, there's certainly some aspects of the machines that haven't improved that much. Mm-hmm. But some of that's just due to human, how should we say, like sound, for example. There's really no benefit in producing higher frequency or bigger bit depth. Our ears simply can't hear the difference, and same with graphics. I mean, it comes to a point where our eyes just can't differentiate more than so many millions of colors. So, some of that stuff kind of plateaued out. But yeah, the CPU and RAM requirements seem to just continue to exponentially increase. But I don't think we've noticed it as much the last 10 years because the primary thing people do on their computers is surf the internet. And so, that has gotten a little bit more CPU hungry. I mean, a perfect example of that is it's hard to browse the web on a like an Apple iBook G4. It's really slow, but some computers from 7 or 8 years ago can actually still do it just fine. In fact, I'm sitting in front of one now that's from 2007, so that is 10 years old, and it's actually surfing the web just fine, doing YouTube and everything else.
I still miss my XP. I still wish I could be running it, but I know that it's somewhat obsolete. It's not completely gone, but I miss it a lot.
I was going to say a benefit that we've seen is things have gotten smaller. In fact, I'm running off of a Dell. I think it's an i3050. It's about 4 inches by 4 inches by 1 inch. And it's running the program, and so and it's about as powerful as the laptop that's in front of Sir Lana, which is about 4 to 5 years old. Mm-hmm. So it's impressive to see that technology has just gotten smaller. I mean, even the iPhone. I mean, we take it for granted now that we're taking around a small portable.
Actually, it's getting larger.
Well, a small portable computer. I mean. It's just impressive how small gadgets have gotten.
Well, what blows my mind, if it's true, I don't know if this is true, how they're saying the technology we're holding in our hand with our phones has greater computing power than the lunar module that got them to the moon.
I would say an exponentially more computing power than that. But, the interesting thing about that is, when you look at desktop computers, pretty much all of them over like the last 20 or 30 years, they're mostly empty space inside. Mm-hmm. So the Mac Mini, which is what I've got here in front of me, was a perfect example of simply maximizing or minimizing the amount of empty space in a computer. You didn't really necessarily need any better technology. It's just a matter of packaging it smaller. And for some reason or another, desktop manufacturers just haven't had any incentive to do that. And yeah, I really don't understand that, to be honest, because still most of the computers, like 95% of the desktop computers that I see in like Best Buy, Fry's, and things like that, are still huge, and there's no reason for it at all.
Mm-hmm. The towers.
I don't really know.
Yeah, that's why I was impressed by this one when he got it. It's like maybe slightly bigger than a Roku box.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I had no idea they could get that small. But I guess, like you say, the components inside, they don't have to take up all that space.
Well, it's not even running off of a hard drive. It's running off of a memory card, 32 gig memory card in it.
An SD card?
Yeah, and it's expandable. You can expand it with memory up to 4 gigs. It's only running 2 gigs. and expandable with a solid state drive. You can add to it, but it's just the bare bones, and it still manages to do what I need to do for running the program. So, I mean, it's impressive to see that little box and do what it needs to do. So
our first hard drive in the first computer we had, 850 megabytes. And that blew our minds. You can imagine? And remember, the first CD-ROM we wanted to buy was so expensive. The internal CD-ROM.
Right.
Now it's like, we don't even need that anymore. I can't believe how much I've seen change in my lifetime.
How's that change affected you over the lifetime that you've lived with computers, David?
Actually, you're breaking up just a little bit. Can you say that again?
I'm sorry about that. How's that? How's the, over the years that you've been a part of computers that you love, tell us a little bit of your perspective. I mean, for us, we sound like we're like 90, and like, back in the horse and buggy years, this was that and this and this. Tell us your perspective of how it's affected you, and you've seen that growth over the years.
Right. Yeah.
Well, when I was a kid, I always had a love for technology. I looked at the sci-fi shows as a kind of a beacon as to where I thought, technology would take us. And the unfortunate reality of that is that many of the predicted technologies never materialized, like warp drive and transporters and things like that. But many other things did materialize that we would have never imagined, like, our smartphones and Facebook and things like that. And those have certainly changed my life. I being a kind of a hermit, like I always have been, I don't have that many friends that I actually go out and do things with, but it's nice that every day I do get to see updates and things from all my friends. Now, I had email back in the 80s, and not very many people did. In fact, I was probably the only kid in my school that had access to email, so it was kind of useless to communicate with your friends and family because nobody else had it, but I did communicate with other nerds, like myself, through email. And, I always thought how nice it would be if everybody was, had a computer and could be online using email. Mm-hmm. And I guess now that is at least something that did happen. Not exactly like I'd imagined it, but it did happen.
We're living parallel lives.
Yeah, she's laughing over here because you're saying a lot of things. Well, yes, you're like this, Space Boy, you're like that.
And me, yeah.
So, yeah. Let's throw you a curveball. Picard or Kirk?
Picard.
Yes.
Just on it, and then of course another curveball we'll throw at you, and then we'll get back on the track here. Is we'd like to take cats, and dog for 200.
You lost me on that one.
Okay, you have animals, right?
Uh-huh, right.
And tell us a little bit about your animals.
Because we watched you build a swanky tower for the cats.
Well, currently we have 2 cats. In that video I had 3, but one was really old, and she actually passed away not too long after that video was made. So I've got the 2 cats, and we have the 1 dog. Now, I'm not a dog person. The dog, my wife and the daughter wanted the dog. I get along better with the cats. I don't even know how to explain it. I mean, logically, the dog I recognize is smarter and more emotionally similar to a human being, so should, in theory, make a better companion. But for some reason or another, I just find dogs to be kind of icky. Like, they're not soft like a cat. They lick me. Their nose is wet. They smell bad. And, I just don't like to pet dogs. And so I like my cats, and I like the fact that they use a litter box, and I don't have to worry about the mess and cleaning up after them and trying to let them out and all the maintenance they require. So yeah, I'm a cat person, but I recognize why people like dogs. I just personally not that big of a fan.
That's been my experience too. We have a cat that we didn't really intend. I didn't go into this marriage expecting we would end up with a cat, but we did. And because she was older, nobody wanted her. Everybody wants to adopt kittens, and she's just been like the greatest thing that's happened to us together.
Yeah, the thing is with our cat is that we had gone to a PetSmart and saw her, and I said, if this cat's still here next time we come here, then we'll...
It's the sign.
It's the sign. And, of course, a week later, they were about to close this particular PetSmart down and move it down the street. And she was still there, and she ended up coming home. And, Muffin is a part of our life. And I've never gotten into a cat myself. I've been more of a dog person, and this cat is just...
She's awesome.
She's the best awesome cat that anybody could have.
No complaints.
So I bet you didn't think that you were going to get asked cat questions tonight, so we appreciate you.
No.
And only other off topic would be like, where do you get your cool shirts?
Oh yes, you stole that one from me. Before you answer that, I got a tub of really just shirts like Pac-Man game shirts, all this, and
which all geeks should have.
All geeks should have, and I think you've said that in your videos too. So, where do you get all your cool apparel?
Oddly enough, most of them are presents. My wife has bought a bunch of those for me for my birthday and for Christmas, and some of my other family members, aunts, uncles, mom, dad, those kind of people, they bought them for me for Christmas, and I bought one or two maybe myself, like on eBay. You can find a lot of those on eBay. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of them are probably unlicensed. But I think my wife has bought a lot of them from ThinkGeek on their website, and I think they have actual licensed products. But I haven't bought that many of them myself. But that's what I wear for my shows, and I try to pick one somewhat relevant to the subject matter at hand, but not always. Mm-hmm. And I need some more, though. I've been kind of wearing out the ones I've got.
Yeah, I usually have to hide them from Solano because, why are you don't wear half of them all the time, so why can't I have one just to lounge around in? Because
he's very possessive of his 80 million shirts he has.
Yes, I mean, it's like, okay, I'm going to, when these shirts I'm wearing right now wear out, I've got a new batch of shirts. So, but I can't.
Whereas yesterday or today we were going out somewhere and we had on the same Star Trek shirt, and I was like, we cannot do it. One of us has got to change. We'll look like idiots.
But obviously you could tell we're nerds. So, but the shirts have been really awesome because you have a fine collection of them, sir.
So it makes me wonder if he is a Rick and Morty fan or if he just wears that shirt, Mr. Meeseeks,
yeah,
it's a gift.
Yes, I'm a Rick and Morty fan.
Good. What are some of your other favorite pop culture-y things like
Before we get back on track.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that should be obvious from all the shirts I wear. I have like 5 or 6 Futurama shirts, so that would several Doctor Who. I guess those are the only other pop culture shirts I have. But I like all kinds of science fiction and anything like Rick and Morty and Futurama both. I like them because they're funny, but they also make you think. They've got lots of really interesting concepts that, a lot of them I've thought about before. Some of them I've never thought of, like the Mr. Meeseeks thing. I've never thought about that. It's the most interesting concept. It's like, how do they come up with that stuff? I have no idea.
That's one of my favorite lines is, existence is pain to a Meeseeks. Just want to die.
Yeah, that show is very interesting, and we've been reading a lot of things behind the scene of the depth.
Fan theories that have been like, oh, wow, that's cool, and just saw what we think is the season 3 premiere. We're not sure because it aired on April Fool's, which was
I saw that too.
Awesome to get to see. I now watch them make that be like a dream sequence, or it never happened, or because it was in the wrong alternate reality, and it's been a lot of fun. So when we saw you wear the Meeseeks shirts, we're like, yay!
Yay! He is one of us. So let's get back into something similar but fun, and that is gaming. You definitely show that you have a history of playing some of these retro games, and I will be the first to admit, based on my age, 82 was a golden age for me as far as the arcade was concerned, because you had so many games like Pac-Man, you had Donkey Kong, just a few years before that you had Space Invaders. I don't know who didn't have an Atari 2600 on my block.
I didn't.
Well, I mean, you were a few years younger than me, so I understand.
No, I had the Odyssey with the keyboard.
Oh yeah, and so tell us about some of your favorite gaming, and we'll kind of lead into you building your own game.
Oh, okay. Well, that's such a broad topic. I don't know exactly where to even begin. I did have the Atari 2600, just like you, and I had quite a few games for it. This was back probably around 1980, 1981, and it wasn't that long after that we got the Commodore VIC-20 and then the 64, and the games were so superior on those machines. I don't think the VIC-20 or the Atari ever got played after that. We never had the Nintendo. Some of my friends did, so I was familiar with Super Mario Brothers and things like that at the time, but we did not have it. In fact, I wasn't even a big fan of the Nintendo at the time because people always ask me, well, why do you like your Commodore 64 better? And I'm like, well, because I can do all these other things with it. Like I can call bulletin board systems, and I can type up my papers, and I can program stuff and download new games from BBSs and all these things you can't do with a Nintendo. So I guess, some of my favorite games, it's kind of hard to say because my tastes have changed. A lot of the games that I liked as a kid, I don't really like that much anymore. I used to play all the arcades too, like Space Invaders and Pac-Man and Donkey Kong, and I guess I still play them every now and then, but they don't really hold that much interest for me anymore as far as actually sitting down and playing it. I like talking about them. I like examining how they worked and things like that. But I don't actually like playing them that much. And then I also really liked, as a kid, I liked to play the Ultima games and pretty much, like the Sierra games, like where you had the strategy, where you had to try to figure stuff out. And these games could take weeks or sometimes months to solve them. And the funny thing about it is I hate those kind of games today because I don't have time for it. And, back when I was 12, I had an abundance of time and nothing to do with that time, so those games were good for filling that time. But today, I mean, I cringe at the thought of sitting down and playing an Ultima game or something like that because there's just no time. The irony behind that is that's actually a lot of the reason why I don't like modern games, because when you sit me down in front of an Xbox or a PlayStation or something like that, and you stick one of these games on there, I often can't figure out what I'm supposed to do. They're not intuitive. It's like I have to get the manual out and read it to figure out how to play it, and I guess that's something I kind of miss about games like Tetris, which is a game I do still play on a fairly regular basis, because you can just sit down and it's fairly immediately obvious how to play it. And then even games like Duke Nukem 3D, which I spent quite a bit of time playing that game, and still do, actually.
Gotta love Duke Nukem.
So, again, that doesn't take a whole lot of time to figure out how to play it, but as you play it more, you do figure out little tricks and things that might not have been obvious at first to make you a better player.
I knew all the cheat codes.
Yeah. Me too. I think I'm just rambling at this point, so maybe you should just ask me something.
Well, I was going to say that I totally understand where you're coming from, because, it's like I see a lot of these games, and they're designed to maximize the hours and the playability for players. And I come from, I guess I'm getting to that age where, I just want a simple run up a ramp, avoid some fires and some barrels. There's this game that I play on Steam. We do a lot of Steam game playing where it's called Broforce, where it's basically you just go in and you're one of these guys and you shoot and you try to make it to the end of the level, and that's it. It's simple, not
mindless.
Mindless.
So engaged.
In fact, she was laughing at me the other day because I loaded Peggle on another machine because it's just simple. You shoot a ball to try to get all the red balls and take them out, and just simplistic. But
we do the Steam on PC gamers.
So but so going with that, I mean, I know you are working on a game of your own. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I would actually be delighted. So this is a sequel to a game I wrote several years ago for the Commodore VIC-20. It was called Planet X1, and it was really just an experiment. I wanted to see if I could write a real-time strategy game for an 8-bit machine. And the reason I picked the VIC-20 was because that machine, there hadn't been... Most of the games that were written for that machine were very primitive shoot-'em-up type arcade games, and most of that had to do with the lack of RAM. But these days, if you're emulating it, you can add the full RAM expansion, which is like 32K. So I knew if you put the RAM expansion on there, I knew that you could probably do something like that. So I did, and it worked. Now I spent several weeks, if not months, working on that game, and it was a fun experiment. And I got it to the point that it was playable, but I never actually completed it, at least to the degree of all the different things I had envisioned putting in there. And I think one of the reasons that I lost interest in it is because there really wasn't anybody to play it besides me. I mean, I posted it to a couple of Commodore forums, and I think maybe 5 or 6 people may have downloaded it and played it. But, it kind of takes the fun out of creating something like that when there's nobody else to really enjoy it. But I guess now that I've kind of got the popularity of my YouTube channel, I realize it's like, hey, if I write a game now, then more than 5 people will probably actually play it. In fact, I might actually be able to do, which I guess is kind of a dream from my childhood, which is to actually complete the game and then actually sell it as a physical box set with a nice, printed box and manual and I want it to be on a cartridge if possible. And so I realize there's actually possibly enough interest now that I could do that. In fact, I've seen some other games for retro systems actually do really well on Kickstarter because I think that genre is kind of coming back to life a little bit. And so I wanted to write a game and actually produce it as a real commercial product. And I might only sell a few hundred copies of it, but that would at least be enough to make it worthwhile to do all of the actually finish the game. So the game itself is what I'm doing now is I'm starting from scratch, but it's the similar concept as I did a few years ago on the VIC-20. I should mention, by the way, and this is a relatively unknown fact, is that for those who watch *Halt and Catch Fire*, my game was actually shown on there.
What?
Very briefly.
Okay,
First
off, Sir Lana, don't go there.
Okay.
I've been begging you to watch the show. It's a great show, and I'm glad you brought this up. So now you should watch this show. So tell us more about how it got featured.
Well, I don't know. I haven't actually seen it yet because I've seen season 1 and I've seen a few episodes of season 2, and I've been meaning to go watch the rest of it. But my brother sent me a text message, and he says, "Yeah, we used to play this game years ago, and I can't remember what it was called." And he said, "Yeah, they showed it on the show," and I'm like, "Well, can you send me a screenshot or something?" So he paused I think he was watching on a DVR or something. But anyway, he paused it and he took a screenshot and sent it to me, and I looked at that and says, "That is my game. That's Planet X1 that I wrote." That I just wrote that a few years ago. And he said, "Oh yeah, that was the game they showed that they were writing for their online service that they're running or whatever."
Mutiny.
And so it makes sense that they would use that game because it's not copyright. I mean, if they put Pac-Man up there, everybody's going to know, well, they didn't create that. So they probably wanted something that was relatively unheard of and that was copyright-free. So it kind of makes sense that they would use that.
Well, that's very cool. I'm going to have to go back over that.
Don't know which episode.
Well, I kind of got.
Well, I've watched up to episode 6 in season 2, and I haven't seen it yet. So I know it's sometime in season 2, and I'm going to find it eventually.
Yeah, it sounds like when Mutiny being the up and starting company that they're forming to do this like an online gaming service, and I'll definitely have to go back and watch that. That's very cool.
So anyway, so I'm recreating that on the Commodore 64, and one of the machine has a lot more memory and a lot better graphics, and so the game is taking a different shape than it did on the VIC-20. I'm putting a little bit more effort into making it look better and play better, and I kind of copied the look of the Ultima games. I mean, the screen layout is almost identical, where you've got the 11x11 grid in the top left, and you've got the scrolling text on the bottom right that tells you information about what's happening. But I'm taking a lot of gameplay ideas from real-time strategies like StarCraft, but I've had to modify the concept to work on a joystick rather than a mouse-oriented game. So you only control one unit at a time, and you actually drive it around rather than like on StarCraft, you would use your mouse and grab, select multiple different units and tell them where to go or what to do. So you do get to control many different units, and you get to build all kinds of little things, like machine shops and missile turrets and missile silos and launch nuclear missiles and things like that. But again, you have to control one unit at a time, which changes the gameplay a little bit, but not too much. And the C64 seems to be able to handle it pretty well. I think I've kept the concept of the real-time strategy working pretty well, and I don't think anything else, to my knowledge, has ever been created on an 8-bit machine like that you could call a real-time strategy. Most everything else would be like a turn-based strategy, like the Ultimas were, where it's like you shoot your enemy and then you wait for him to do something and then you do something back or whatever. But this all takes place in real time. You've got an enemy that's building stuff and enhancing his base and capabilities and stuff while you're doing yours, and whoever gets to be the more powerful first is going to win.
So how far are you on this project, and when will we see, a Kickstarter-like thing out there for it?
Pretty soon, actually. I wanted to get to the point that the game was playable, and I have actually reached that point now. In fact, I put a little teaser on one of my last videos showing what the gameplay looks like. I want to add just a few more features, just to kind of help people see how the game actually plays. For example, right now there's actually no enemy. Planet X1 had enemies, so you can get an idea from that. On the VIC-20, the old game I wrote, but I haven't actually created any AI yet for this game. So right now you can drive around the map and build a couple of things, but there's nothing else to really do at this point. So I wanted to get just a little bit more. I'm thinking another couple of weeks, and I'm probably going to launch the Kickstarter because I wanted people to see not only what the game was going to be like, but I also wanted to prove to them that I can, in fact, do this. I'm not just making it up because, if you're going to, a lot of people worry about Kickstarter because, you can give money to something and that doesn't mean the project will ever actually materialize. And but I think if I show people that, hey, I've already gotten this far, I'm probably 40% done with the game, I think it's pretty obvious I can finish it. I just need the time, and obviously I'll need the funds in order to get all the product manufactured like I want. So,
yes, it's been, Kickstarter has been a wonderful way for individuals such as yourself to get their project out there. And we have seen a few projects that, looked like it had some wonderful potentials, but didn't follow through. But I'm rooting for you on this one because it's kind of it's in that vein of homebrewed games where people have gone back to create games that at the time you would have never thought were possible on certain systems, and made them look just really awesome. And in my mind, I guess I would always play back like, well, if we could have done this at this time, why didn't we try to put forth the effort? But of course, some of the stories that we've seen about the history of Atari, and it's amazing that let's go.
It's amazing anything got done
exactly.
Based on what they were doing in the office.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Well, and that's an interesting point. I've actually considered that several times. If this game, well, I'll go back to the one I did for the VIC-20, Planet X1. Even though I never even entirely finished it, I guarantee you if that game existed, even in its current form, back in like 1981, it would have been probably one of the top 10 games for the VIC-20. Granted, not many people would have been able to play it because it would require a 32K RAM expansion. But and that's exactly what I hope to do with this game too. Is if you were to imagine sending it back in a time machine to like 1982 when the Commodore 64 just came out, this would likely be a top game. It definitely would not have any competition on the market. Nothing else like it. Because real-time strategies, I don't know when the first one was. I don't know if it was Warcraft or Microsoft had one. I forgot what it was called now, Age of Empires or something like. I'm not sure which was the first one, but I think it was in the 90s when they came out with that concept. So yeah, there would definitely have been nothing like it for the C64.
You know, I was going to take a step back here for a second. That I had the gaming systems. I had the 2600. I had the 52. We eventually got a Nintendo, and like I said, I had one of my first computers was the Tandy computer, and my friends, I had several friends that had the VIC-20 and the 64-bit Commodore 64, and I was always impressed with that because the games looked pretty solid and they looked great compared. There were some games I thought looked better on the Commodore versus the Nintendo. And there was a certain feel to it, like, for example, playing Spy versus Spy or Maniac Mansion, and they were just more interesting to me on a Commodore 64. And your take on that?
Well, I will agree with you. Actually, the Commodore 64, the graphics, I would say they're on par with the Nintendo. The Nintendo has a few advantages, like it has more colors, but the C64 has more resolution. So there's some give and take there. The sound on the C64 is no question is superior to the Nintendo. But the thing that I think really made the difference for me when I compare certain games is the C64 games tended to be more complex, and a lot of the Nintendo games seem to be dumbed down. A perfect example would be take the Ultima games. You can run them on the Nintendo, but they literally are missing about half of the gameplay. I mean, they greatly simplify things. Maybe a lot of it has to do with the fact that you don't have a keyboard, and they're like, well, gee, we can't implement these features because there's no way for the user to type, so we'll just come up with some way they can just skip all that and just use the controller or whatever. So, but there's just so much that's missing from those games on the Nintendo. I mean, that's not the case with all of them, but there's certainly plenty of games out there that I think are crippled on the Nintendo versus the C64.
Oh, cool. Well, let's take our next break here, David, and you're listening to David Murray of the fame of YouTube, and that's the 8-bit guy. But we're going to switch it up in this next half hour because we're going to visit 8-bit keys and a little bit of music. So don't go anywhere. Stay right there. You're listening to Spaceboy Universe on the Spaceboy Universe Network. I am Spaceboy and Sirlana, and we're talking with David Murray of the 8-bit guy fame, and also 8-bit keys. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. But during the break, David, you were talking about you have something controversial coming up on your channel.
Yeah, about once or twice a year, I like to throw a little bit of a curveball on my channel, whether it's something about cats or electric cars or just something that's a little bit out of the normal. And this particular one is one I've been wanting to do for over a year, and it's going to be released probably later tonight to the public. And it's about artificial intelligence, and I've kind of got a theory that I think it's maybe already been created and possibly being hidden from the public. And I kind of talk about why that is, and it's just a crazy theory of mine, but I have some very thought-provoking things I think you're going to see when I go into it.
Yeah, so definitely we'll give your links towards the top of the hour here before you leave. But let's start talking about music. Okay. Personally, I've been doing music for a long time myself. I've been doing Spaceboy since '99, before the turn of the century. It seems so weird, but that was one of the things I guess got connected with you, is that I was a big fan of the game Commando, and the music on it, I always loved it. I played the heck out of that game, but you started an additional channel called the 8-bit Keys. So tell us a little bit about that and how you morphed into that.
Well, it's very similar to my, both channels operate almost exactly the same. I'll typically take some kind of vintage technology, show how it works, demonstrate it, talk about it, things like that. And I do pretty much the exact same thing, only on 8-bit keys I'd focus a little bit more on musical synthesizers, although I have featured Commodore 64, musical peripherals and things like that on many of the episodes. So it has a lot of crossover with my main channel, but I wanted to explore a lot of that stuff in more depth, but I just felt like I should branch that off into a separate channel because I knew a lot of the viewers on my primary channel probably wouldn't necessarily be interested in that, and that does tend to reflect in the subscriber numbers because I have 4 or 5 times the number of subscribers on the primary channel. So I guess it was probably a good idea. But anyway, so yeah, I do have a fascination with retro vintage keyboards and synthesizers and things like that, and it's fascinating to me for many of the same reasons that the computers are fascinating, because that was also the birth of that era. And it's reflected a lot of the pop music from the 80s. You can hear more and more synthesizers being used, and then of course towards the 90s you don't hear it so much anymore because they got to where the synthesizers tended to just mimic more realistic sounding instruments, so you didn't necessarily you couldn't just listen to a song on the radio and say, yeah, I love the synthesizer part on that, because you really can't even tell what part was or wasn't done with the synthesizer. But I really liked the songs from the 80s where you could really say, yeah, I love that particular part of the song. Yeah, I love the synthesizer part on that. A great example would be Van Halen's Jump. I mean, you could clearly tell that that's the synthesizer part.
Oh, and that got so much flack when he did that.
Well, I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Eddie Van Halen got a lot of flack when he played that synthesizer from the hardcore rock, from their fans, and I was thinking, but it's so awesome, and it roots it right in that decade. And when I found new wave in that time frame when the synthesizers were coming out, and you demo these things on these vintage keyboards, and you play, and I'm like, it takes me right back. And I just said, we watched some today of yours, and I was just like, I love that. Just keep playing.
Well, Yamaha, I noticed you do a lot of Yamaha keyboards I've seen on the show, and a lot of that Yamaha sound is just embedded in the 80s music. And
sure,
it's just, I know what you're coming from, because it's so 80s. It's so, and it's, you don't have that warm feeling in a lot of newer synthesizers, but I use a program called Reason, and there's a lot of programs that you can purchase for Reason that are bringing back a lot of that classic synth sound, and it's really refreshing to hear sounds like the good old Yamaha DX7. And but you really do a lot of those keyboards justice as far as getting them where they need to be and demonstrating and showing your
restoring
audience
them too.
And restoring. In fact, one video that we saw you do that was very impressive is one that you got that I think you said FedEx had damaged the
It looked
inside.
like it'd been in a bar fight, really.
Yeah, exactly. And but once again, I'm going to rewire this thing, and you pulled it out and you did what your thing was, and it was impressive at the end. And the sound quality of it was just awesome. So,
Yeah, you mentioned the DX7. I've had hundreds, if not thousands, of requests to have the DX7, and actually I have access to one. A friend of mine here in town has one. He said I could borrow it anytime I want. But I've tend to been focusing on the cheap keyboards, the end user that's the right word, the amateur keyboards of the 80s, because it seems like there are other channels where they show the high end synthesizers, and so I've always tried to pick an area where nobody else is covering, and that's why I came up with 8-bit keys. I'm like, well, what about all these other Casios and little Yamahas and stuff that are from the same time period, and they're all getting neglected and forgotten. So I wanted to be able to give them a place in history and show them. And I've got a ton more of them to show. But I guess at some point, I'm going to have to get that DX7 over here since everybody's always asking for it.
That would be a great. I know I would love to see you do something with the DX7. That's, one of the keyboards that really stands out mentally for 80s music and synth, and it's really sought after. In fact, I happened to price some on eBay recently, and they're going from $500 to $800, and they still hold a good value if they're in good condition. So it's amazing. But as far as the keyboards you do handle, I have had many of those in a lot of Casios. SK1 was one of my favorites. Small and portable, easy to play, and of course it had a sampler on it, and which was really cool. But tell us a little bit about some of the keyboards that you've handled over the course of the show with the program.
Oh, wow. Well,
doesn't have to be all of them. Just pick a few. I know it's extensive.
I've literally covered things as primitive as the Casio VL1, which is almost like a cross between a calculator and a keyboard, which was just a toy, really, from 1980. And, I did a pretty extensive, I thought, pretty neat episode on that. And, I've done the Casio SK1, the SK5. I've done a lot of little Yamahas, like the PSS, like the Portasound series, and there's just so many of them. It's kind of hard to keep track. I did the Miracle piano. A lot of people had asked for that one, and I found one in a estate sale really cheap. That was actually from the 90s, but still kind of an interesting historical piece.
I'm sure you've had your process. Have you torn up more than just the what was it, the Fisher Price one that you tore up?
We were saying he seemed so laid back until we saw you get one that took that cartridge in the back and you couldn't get it unscrewed, and I'm thinking, I think he must have edited around the parts where he lost it.
Yeah, that video kind of took shape as I was recording it. I did have a certain part of it scripted, and I did, where I demonstrated how it worked. But as far as the disassembly thing, it pretty much happened exactly like I showed it. I got extremely frustrated that I couldn't figure out how to get it apart.
We giggled because, this has gone from a disassembly to an autopsy.
Yeah, you pulled out the Dremel and, started cutting it up, and it was like, oh my goodness.
He's going to have this out in the field with a baseball bat, Office Space.
Yeah, it feels good to be against. I thought, it was funny. So, But, it's been great, you taking these and restoring them and pulling the keys out. And
he's probably responsible for price hikes on eBay for some of these.
I wouldn't doubt it. I can see where if people, just like I was saying, I looked at some of the DX7s online recently and some of the PSR, the PSR 300, looked at those to kind of see where pricing was on those. And it's amazing how some of these, he was saying, I got this for $20. And now I'm seeing them going for double, if not triple. I think you're right. I've actually had people email me about that and say that, after I watched your video, I wanted to go buy one of these, and now all the prices are higher. And I've had that happen on both channels, actually. But, it's kind of humbling a little bit to know that happens. But I guess it does. David, tell us a little bit about your music abilities. I've seen you in some of your programs where you've, layered tracks and, did your own compositions. And tell us a little bit about, what's your musical background? I mean, are you classically trained? I mean, I thought maybe you learned, did you teach yourself to play piano, or did you have some kind of instructions?
So, I actually am, more or less completely self-taught. I picked up a keyboard back in, 1993, I think, something like that. And it was just a Casio. Well, I mean, I had a little bitty, some of the little toy keyboards like Casios and stuff back in my youth, but I never really learned how to do anything with them other than play, Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star and, stuff that kids would do on a little keyboard like that. I didn't actually learn how to play properly until the 90s, and I did have a couple of friends who knew how to play piano, and so they did help me, with, show me how to place your fingers and, just kind of maybe walking me through memorizing some songs. I've never really learned to read music. I mean, I can read it, if, you put it in front of me, I can tell you, okay, well, that's an E flat or whatever. But, I mean, that's one thing, but I can't actually, sight read. I mean, you can't put a piece in front of me and tell me to play it. I've just never been able to do that. And so most everything I do is either from memory or I'm just kind of creating it as I go along.
So that's like me. If I've got the sheet music, I can go get a pencil and draw what the actual keys are above each.
And I can read music, but I'm like you. If you put it in front of me, I can't really just automatically just play it. But on the other hand, I can listen and hear and just pick up things. So would you find that maybe you're kind of the same way in that way, where you hear something and I know where that's at, or pick that up?
Yeah. So I'm pretty good at playing chords. If I've got some kind of a sheet music that says, you need to play a C major or a B flat minor or something like that. That I can do, and I know where all the keys are on the keyboard. If you tell me where's an F, I can point it right to you where it is. So I mean, I'm not a complete amateur, but I'm not nearly as good as I think a lot of my viewers think I am. I pretty much have to play everything from memory, and I make it look real easy on screen because, I sometimes practice some of this stuff for hours before I get on, camera and do this. And when I show these multi-track recordings, I don't show all the times I messed up. I only show the time I recorded that track and got it right. And so, I make it look real easy, but it's, I'm really not that good. I know if I were to rank myself from a scale of 1 to 10 on how good I am with playing the keyboard, I'd probably give myself a 4 or 5. I really just have a lot of enthusiasm, and I'm good at making the videos, but I'm not really that good at actually playing. But as long as it works for the show, I guess it's good enough.
Well, it's impressive because there's, for me, quantifying my music is always like my best friend when I can't get that note in the right spot. And when I'm seeing you do your thing, high praise from me to you. And, my hats are off. My hat's off to you. Do you?
I'm laughing at you both because y'all are sitting here comparing notes about your first electronic keyboards, and I'm thinking, my dad was a civil engineer, but he also was a church organist. So we had an organ keyboard in our home. So, I mean, it was electronic, but I'm sitting there thinking of all that when we first got that, and its little banks, and then its presets of, beats and waltzes. And I thought that was just the bee's knees. And y'all said there were synthesizers, and I was thinking, wow.
Well, my grandparents had an organ almost exactly like you're describing. And when I was a kid, age 10 or so, and I'd go over to their house, I would play on that organ. Again, I didn't know how to play back then other than just single monophonic type tunes like Twinkle Twinkle Little Star and stuff. But I would play with all the little settings on there and create little drawbars and stuff and create different sounds and stuff. So, yeah, I'm familiar with that.
So, since we're on this vein of music, one of the things that come across, at least for me, is the music that goes for your show. Can you tell us a little bit about that and kind of lead into the album that you were talking about most recently that's available?
Okay, so, when I was doing my show, for the longest time I had to buy music, for YouTube, because you can't just pick any old song out there. You'll get copyright, dinged for that. So I had to go actually pay money to license music. And I had a lot of people, once my channel started to get popular, people were offering, hey, would you like to use my music? And at first I would turn them all down. The irony about that is I was afraid that if I used their music, at some point I would come back and their music would wind up on the content ID, and I'd wound up, and I wouldn't be able to prove that I had permission to use it. And the irony behind that is that of every single tune that I licensed from some of these different websites on the internet where I actually paid money, I wound up having copyright problems with those songs again and again and again. And now I'd have to go fight it, and I could dig up all the PDF files and everything, and eventually YouTube would say, okay, you're right, we'll reinstate your video or whatever. And I'd always win, but it was a total pain to deal with that over and over again. So I finally said, well, what harm could it do to use the songs that these people are sending me? And so that's what I started doing, and I've got several different artists now that I've been working with. And I've never had a problem with Content ID on any of their music, so I had it completely backwards. I should have been using theirs all along. Anyway, so I've developed some great relationships with some of the musicians that I feature on my channel, and they let me use their music for free, and it benefits them. It gets them some publicity, and some of them have been really happy about that. And now I did when I did the CD, I did pay them royalties for every one that I had produced. So they are getting paid. I mean, I couldn't in good conscience try to sell something, flat out sell it. It's one thing to use it in the background of a video or something, but anyway, yeah. So I put the album together, and now these guys, I classify these guys as real musicians. I'm like an amateur compared to them. And I did put my songs on the CD though. In fact, I think you bought one because I saw the.
I did buy it tonight, and I've enjoyed the intro music because I've done music for several broadcasts myself, and so it's kind of in the vein. So when I heard that you had that available, I said, okay, I got to get my own copy of this. So yeah, I noticed on that particular download, which is the whole album, you're on there playing some tunes, and of course, is it Andrews Jensen or?
Andrews Jensen.
Yes,
yeah.
Andrews Jensen, and I've enjoyed his music immensely, and so it's just really good, and I encourage anybody that wants to get a hold of this album to go to your website, and which leads us into links, and where can people find you and all that good stuff.
They can find me at www.the8bitguy.com, and on YouTube, just search for the 8-Bit Guy or 8-Bit Keys. You find it pretty easily. The album, I feel a little bit embarrassed actually about putting my songs on that album next to people like Anders Jensen and Scott Lee and Phillips Gross, because their music is so much better than mine. But mine is not, the music that I have on there is just basically demonstrations of toy keyboards. So, I mean, you can't really expect it to sound professional, but people are always asking for it. They're like, David, I love this music you did on this toy keyboard. Where can I get a copy of it? Mm-hmm. And I put it on SoundCloud, but SoundCloud, they actually charge you money to let people download. It's kind of backwards.
Oh yeah.
You'd think that they'd pay me for people downloading it, but no. So people are always like, well, why isn't that song available for download? And I'm like, well, because I have to pay SoundCloud to let you download it, but they'll let you play it for free. But people always ask me where they can get a copy, so I'm like, well, I'll just put it on this album, and that way they can get it that way if they want it bad enough.
Well, I know Sirlon and I come from that time where MIDI music and all that is...
I still have MIDI files, of covers of popular songs. I still enjoy them. I guess I was a true nerd. I found a way to play the MIDI on the computer, use the auxiliary line out from my sound card into the back of my little bookshelf stereo with a double cassette players, and I could tape them on a cassette and listen to it in the car. That's how twisted I was.
So, David, also I want to make sure that you talk about your Patreon account because I do know that it is what helps fund your endeavors. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, Patreon obviously is a website that lets people donate money to keep their favorite channels funded. And, most people just donate $1 or $2, although I think I have some donating 10. And it works out pretty well because it's not a lot of money for an individual to donate $1 a month. It's automatically deducted from their credit card. It's $12 a year. But it works well for someone like me because it's a steady income. Because when you multiply that by, a few hundred or 1,000 people that are doing it, and of course this is not secret information. If you look at my Patreon, I'm up to like $2,200 a month or something like that. So, that's not... I get money from YouTube AdSense as well, but those two things combined make a decent living for me to be able to spend all my time making content, and so it's a good way to help fund the channels that you care about. Mm-hmm. I don't know what else to say about that. I don't like begging for money, but it's I guess it's a necessary part of being self-employed with YouTube. So,
well, in the end, it all helps. You get to do something you enjoy doing, and you're providing entertainment to people, and if they want it, they'll buy it, and that's the way things kind of go. You're in a wonderful situation where you can do that, and so hats off to you, sir.
I know how some YouTube channels, they just push it in your face like constantly.
Oh yes.
They mention it 10 times throughout the video. They have a big old scrolling thing at the end of their channel showing you all the people that have given money, and nobody watches that, so I don't see any benefit of adding that. And I'm not going to shout out names of Patreon supporters 5 times throughout my videos, because I think it degrades the quality of the video that people are wanting to watch. And so I don't do any of that. I do, have a little scrolling text at the very end of my video that mentions, hey, you can support this channel on Patreon, and that's pretty much all I ever mention about it. And if people don't want to support me, then they don't have to, but there are actually plenty of people doing it right now. I would be fine if it never went any higher than it is right now. So I'm not asking anybody else to go on there unless they just really, really want to. Actually, what I can use more is the donations of a lot of people send me equipment to show on the channel. And now I do mention their names when they do that, because I know that requires a lot of, it costs a lot to ship that equipment to me, usually $30, $40 in shipping sometimes. And that's the way I'm able to get some of the more interesting items that I can show on my channel is the donations that people send me. So,
well, that is interesting. And David, I understand that it is late, and we appreciate every minute that you've allowed us to talk with you tonight.
Indeed.
And obviously, the universe is watching you on YouTube, if not semi-regular, but daily. And we look forward to more of your videos on YouTube and whatever your endeavors lead you to.
All right. Well, thank you for having me on.
Yes. Well, have a good evening, sir, and I guess we'll talk to you soon. In fact, I'll send you an email like I was discussing earlier, and we'll go from there.
All righty. Thank you a lot.
Thank you so much.
Have a good one, David.
Okay.
Bye. Well, there you go. David Murray, the 8-bit guy.
Fooled him into 2 hours.
Yeah, it was like, well, during the break early on, he said, well, that went quick. Mm-hmm. It's funny, we just blow through this. You remember how when we started, it was like 2-hour program?
Mm-hmm.
And
Doesn't seem like enough now, does it?
Yeah, it's like 3 hours now, and it's like, we had so much more information to talk about, but we'll take what we can from our guests when they're, he was nice enough to come on tonight, and we appreciate that. So.
Yeah, I learned a lot of stuff. We were binge watching today, and he took we call it the APC battery backup that you plug your computer in and all that stuff. He took it apart and modded it to where you could get more battery life out of it. So that was really interesting.
Well, let's take a quick break, and we'll talk a little bit more about his stuff. And when we continue, more Space Boy with Space Boy and Solana. So don't go anywhere. Boy, I love that song.
It's great. I love it.
Yeah, it was one of the two songs I wrote for Solaris Blue Raven for her new book, A Million Miles to Midnight. And that one was the second song I wrote, which ended up being, for her book. But the first one I wrote, which is Solaris, self-entitled, and I thought it was
both really good.
Yeah, it was a little different, but I think that one encapsulates her book. So let's see here.
So, where we were.
Yeah.
So we are fans of 8-Bit Guy, and periodically we'll get together and we watch his videos, but like we were binge watching them today.
Yeah, because we wanted to make sure we were on top of all information, and there was a lot more that we didn't get to. So
well, what fascinates me is he'll get like an old Apple Mac, like an Apple II, or something like that, and somebody will send it to him. And the first thing he does, he takes it all apart, and if some of this older equipment, not just computers, but, it's made of that plastic, and it will discolor over time. It started out as white or beige, and it turns this yellowy color.
Like sun UV light is basically what does that.
So he gives it a little bath in this. He
peroxide,
explains,
type.
And then he wraps it in clear
cellophane
saran wrap, and takes it outside in the sun, and a chemical reaction has, and it kind of goes back to what...
And what works out is, people have talked about how, don't be doing that. Oh, I see what you're doing. I thought you were holding like a Oreo cookie in front of me, like a carrot in front of a donkey. But anyway, what's fascinating is that people have asked him, well, why don't you use a UV light? And I guess like him probably says, well, it's easier to do it in the sun. And, well, being here in Texas, that sun can get pretty...
It's faster in the sun.
It's faster in the sun. So it's amazing to see the process go from this dingy-looking yellow that looks like somebody's been smoking for 20 years and to it just came off the assembly line, white, in perfect color, white as could be.
And he'll take old video game cartridges like Atari or whatever, and you'll unscrew them if they're not working, pull the little motherboard, daughterboard out, clean the contacts in a vinegar solution or something like that, denatured alcohol, stick it all back together, and it works.
Clears
stuff I would be scared to do.
Clears off all the corrosion off the contacts.
But he'll do that in places where he'll buy old synthesizers where these things took batteries, and the batteries have exploded.
Oh, yeah, like you can see the leakage inside.
And he can clean up the contacts and the batteries.
But it is simply amazing that when he starts off on his project, you see the stain, you think, there is just no way this is going to come out good. And at the end of the program...
Sometimes it doesn't.
But his hit ratio is pretty good. The things that he does show. Of course, we're only seeing a lot of the good stuff, but he has shown a few things that haven't really turned out perfect.
Yeah, he's like, well, maybe I'll return to this when my enthusiasm returns
For example, like when we were talking about that one keyboard he bought at a Waco Goodwill store,
little kids,
Fisher Price thing, where he ends up taking a Dremel to it and, just bzzz, and...
he's like, well, they never intended anybody to get into this to
honestly,
repair it.
When he was doing it, I had the Art of Noise close to the edit in my mind.
Where they're beating that piano with things.
Yeah, that's I could hear the music in my head when he was doing that. So, but yeah, he is amazing when he comes to this restoration.
He's entertaining.
He's very entertaining. And
he does collabs.
Yeah.
Where he'll have people come on from other channels.
Other
to talk
channels.
about...
In fact, he did one where these guys created what is called an Atari junk keyboard, where it was a homemade keyboard. And they sent it to him, and they kind of, I think the guy's name was Ben,
from scratch.
Ben Hank, I believe, is the guy that created the keyboard for him from scratch.
They start with a breadboard, and they just start putting the circuits on it, and, they have to map it out, and then they build it.
I like your reaction to that, and you were saying, what the heck is that? Because it was the way it was colored, and, it was really funky looking, but I thought that was kind of interesting to build your own. Well,
I was surprised to learn that these keyboards had these Yamaha chips in them, and they were the same Yamaha chips that were on Sound Blaster sound cards back in the day. They're all using the same chipset.
Yeah, that's what I found interesting too.
Like, whoa.
The Yamaha chipset, I can't remember off the top of my head.
And I told you, before MP3s were a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And you couldn't really get that many WAV files unless they were, clips from TV or movies or just random sounds. Before any of that was a thing, all that I really had to get on the internet for free, too, was MIDI files. And I would get, and I still have them. I get these MIDI files. Let's say I got 96. And I would keep them.
Sorry. Give it a second. There we go. It's trying to come back. Okay, sorry, I hit my mic. My bad.
Yeah. And then I would keep these MIDI files, and as I would get newer computers, my sound card would be better than the last one. So I would listen to the same MIDIs, but I would start hearing more instruments in the MIDI than when I did
the quality
previously.
Was better,
yeah. Very interesting to see that progression.
And I originally, I wrote in MIDI and used the general MIDI format to play back a lot of my musical things that I would do. Of course, now it's so different with writing music now because I'm using wave samples, I'm using MP3s, I'm using simulated synth, in a lot of things. But I am using more real guitar lately.
Yes.
Yeah.
At my insistence, I'm like, you can play these instruments. You have 6, 7 guitars. Why don't you pick one up and record?
I keep playing with my favorite guitar, my Parker Fly. I've always wanted one of those, and I finally got one. It's just, I can't explain other than the neck is
that the
just
black one?
Yeah, it's just the right size. I call it the Apollo because it looks, black and white because it looks like a Apollo rocket. I know I'm crazy.
Not the not ancient Greek god.
Yeah, not the Greek god, exactly.
Roman.
But it's a wonderful guitar because my hands are kind of fat. Sorry.
Fingers, you mean?
Yeah, fat fingers. But it allows me to really be able to grip the guitar head and the neck. So it's easier to play is what I'm getting at. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I like it.
I also learned about circuit bending.
Oh, yeah.
Which I'd never heard of on his channel.
A lot of people are taking things like keyboards and some of like the old speak and spells. Mm-hmm. And, with the circuit bending allowing it to, do different and funky things to make sounds out of it. Even creating a jack for plugging into amplifier or recording device.
Yeah, I saw a speak and spell where somebody had added all these knobs and some kind of dials on it, so they could, attenuate it and play it like a musical instrument.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, what? Yeah, Baby Predator.
No, your sister's talking about equipment. I'm sure Johnny plays, and so it's. I guess the circuit bending was interesting. It's great to see him actually do something further on that one.
He actually will sit there and show you how old technology functioned, which is something I don't think we ever bothered to learn back in the day. Like he'll take apart a 5 1/4 floppy, a 3.5 floppy, and say he'll do diagrams on how these actually work, how they read information.
The metamorphosis. He talked about monitors or
how we went
video
from
cards.
CGA to EGA to VGA to SBGA to LCD to LED. Yeah.
Right.
And how certain monitors could only do 4 colors, and if they were just unattractive colors, that's what you've got.
And I do recall his presentation about Moore's Law, things doubling, and that particular one that he did, and I've seen many graphs on the curve, if you will, and aren't you fascinated over the fact that he's going to do something on AI?
Yes.
Once again, it's kind of like I like the fact that we did a show on AI, and then just other things out there in the universe. People have started doing little shows, mainstream shows, in fact, that I listen to. That I'm not going to go in to tell you who they are. Just know that it seems like we tapped a nerve ahead of the wave of AI talk, and I thought that was pretty cool. So I'm looking forward to
that's
his.
That's good because we need to keep our eye on it.
Yeah,
we do need to keep an eye on it. I learned what kind of fixing and modding he could do. He took you can walk into a store like Walmart or somewhere now, go to the toy section, and you can see what looks like just a joystick box, and it's actually has like 5 or more games on it. So it looks like a retro game controller, but that whole controller has the games inside the box.
Right, he did an episode on that.
So he had a bunch of these, and he was doing reviews on them, and one of them was a Sega Genesis retro thing, and it looked like a teeny tiny Sega Genesis console. It was a little adorable, but when he went to play one of the games, like Sonic, it had this god-awful, it was so loud it was almost distorted.
It sounded distorted to me, and it
was very cringe-inducing. You couldn't hardly play the game because the sound was just so bad. So he did some digging around and researching, and he found out you could crack that box open because the box and the controller are two separate pieces. And he desoldered and rewired and resoldered.
Initially, he put a resistor. He did alligator clips in a resistor to see if he could adjust the sound. But then ultimately, he did something soldering-wise. And what's interesting is he pops up this diagram, and he starts into this thing. Well, I did this, and then I went to there, and then I did this. And, I mean, it's all coherent. You know what it reminded me of? Going back talking about Solaris Blue Raven, how she talks, and then she talks like at 1,000,000 miles a mile.
It's like a huge download.
But it's like a huge download, and it's pure knowledge going in. So the same thing with David on this particular episode, talking about what he did, and it was fascinating. And at the end, what happened? Did I lose you there?
What happened?
What happened with David in this particular Genesis thing?
Go ahead.
It ended up working. I mean,
that's
the sound
what
level
blew my mind is whatever he did. It looks like so far fetched, and it worked. It actually fixed the sound. It sounded normal. I couldn't get. It's like things I would never try to do to fix something.
Oh, this piece of crap in the trash can. I found that interesting because I own many of the same games that he was, in this particular episode he was talking about fixing one, but he later on did a show where he demonstrated some of the games and kind of compared them, I guess, to the actual games elsewhere. So that was fascinating as well.
I started out because you had subscribed to him. We were watching it for show content today. It was difficult not to get sucked in to just watch it for entertainment. So it's informative, and he keeps his videos relatively short, so it's like doesn't take up much of your time. But I don't know what it is that it just appeals to me. I guess I'm just always going to be a huge nerd.
Speaking of getting how did you get hooked into it? I mean, I immediately
here's what the thing is. We have a Roku box. It's in our living room. That's actually the only TV we have left that works. Little 32-inch TV. And that's all we have is a Roku and internet for entertainment. So the YouTube app on the Roku, you're logged into it under your login. So we see all the things you're subscribed to first. And I was bored one day, and I was going through all your channels you're subscribed to, and I found a bunch of his videos, and next thing I'm just sucked into this. Even about restoring synthesizers and keyboards, something I've never done, not really interested in, would never do, but for some reason I'll watch things I don't understand what the appeal is. Like once upon a time, I got really into watching prison documentaries about prisons and Scared Straight. And the show. What's that sheriff thing I watched?
Sheriff thing
on True TV. Real Stories of Highway Patrol.
Well, that was kind of
God
fascinating.
only knows why I get addicted to certain things at certain times, but at least I'm not boring in that respect. But Yeah, I got hooked on the 8-Bit Guys because you were subscribed to him, and then I found his other channel, 8-Bit Keys. And, you know, like I said, I'm just a huge nerd.
Nerd! Yeah, I was doing a search for video game music and came across his 8-Bit Keys and saw a clip, but I didn't make the connection. And somehow I was doing another search, and I guess based on the search that I saw 8-Bit Keys, which led me to the 8-Bit Guy. And that's when I started watching all the 8-Bit Guy stuff. And then I went back and started watching 8-Bit Keys and just really thought, wow,
cool.
This is a righteous dude. And I have to learn more about him. And yeah, I see you smiling over there.
He's a righteous dude.
Ferris Bueller. And he's you know, he has this vibe about him. He's just kind of laid back. I mean, the only thing we saw him in his videos get kind of frustrated was with that one keyboard where he ended up taking the the Fisher Price one with a Dremel and all sorts of stuff to just see the inside.
I'm going to get into this thing.
One way or another, I'm getting into this. But he, you know, it's nice to see. In other words, I find David genuine. Mm-hmm. He seems like, you know, you would meet him in person. That's the kind of guy he is. And you kind of hear how modest he was about, you know, he didn't really want to promote his links and stuff like that. But well,
you know, our audience may not be familiar with him. They need to know where to find him.
Exactly. You know, he just seems genuine, and I like watching people like that. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it's easy to watch things that are informative. And some of his shows remind me of the old days of Discovery Channel.
It also reminds me of Tech TV. Remember Tech TV?
Yeah, Tech TV,
with,
yes.
That guy who's still around. He's on a lot. Leo Laporte. Remember him from Tech TV? Mm-hmm. That's what he kind of reminds me of, as a younger Leo Laporte. One of some of the other things I saw him do was he'll do these quirky things where he took a tape drive, like a backup tape drive, and he unwound it. He tied it to the back of his bicycle, and the other end to like a light pole or a tree, and he wanted to see how long it was. And then he did it, and the wind caught it, took it off, and it snapped it in half, and it turns out to be half a mile long.
Right.
But yet you couldn't store as much info on it as you could like a 3.5 floppy. Mm-hmm. It was really interesting. And then he does these things where he tested a Chevy Volt against a Tesla. You know, he's got some bigger, he's getting, I guess, more well known. He's getting bigger projects to test. So, and he talked about how old school ROM cartridges worked in the games, and it fascinated me on these game cartridges. You know, there's a little circuit board in there. How little memory there was on these things, mm-hmm. and they kind of had to partner with the onboard memory of the console. Excuse me. Some of them to work, and then some of them had an extra ROM in them. You know, it's just stuff I never thought about, because when you're a kid, you just want to play the game. You don't think about how it works.
Why is this taking so long?
And you know,
why won't it load?
And then he'll go and he'll unscrew the cartridge, and you got this big piece of plastic, and the actual thing in there that's running it's as big as a credit card or less. Mm-hmm. But those things were darn near indestructible, as long as you didn't mess up the contacts or anything, because they're in that hard plastic case. You could chuck it across the room. And
once again, it's amazing the technology that was in these things, and you just took it for granted because you plugged it in and it worked. I mean, it's like when we're talking about the computer that I have running the show. You know, it looks like a big fat sandwich, and it's like
slightly bigger than a Roku box.
Yeah, it's slightly bigger than a Roku box, and yet it handles the show, and it's impressive what it does. I mean, technology It's amazing technology today, and going back in time, technology of yesteryear. And when I say yesteryear, I'm referring to 80s, 70s, things that they did to make technology cool back then. The thing is that arcade games, the system board that they had was pretty sizable. It was bigger than.
That's why the cabinet was so big.
Yeah, well, the system board was bigger than an LP, record.
And that's just to run one game.
One game. It had all these chips in it and all that good stuff, and one
now
game.
that one game is sitting on a little chip with 100 other ones,
which can be played. That's on a Raspberry Pi. So it's just. I don't know. I think from my perspective, and probably from your perspective, Solana, is that we've seen things so huge and, hard drives that were less than a gig. And now we've got, hard drives that are, terabytes now. And
I've heard of petabytes?
Petabytes?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not too far off in the distance. I mean, and it's kind of timely with the topic of AI, and because, they're talking about within the next 5 years, we could be looking at something that could be indistinguishable between us and something that's artificial. And,
I don't know if I believe it or to want that to even happen.
Mm-hmm. That's why I think that a show on transhumanism is relevant in our near future that we should talk about, and I'm looking forward to talking about that.
Seems like we'll be able to make a lot of 2001: A Space Odyssey references on that one, because that explored the concept of transhumanism. Although it wasn't obvious, you had to kind of sit back and see that on your own. That's what. You see a fetus near the end of that movie, and that's like the space baby.
Star Child.
It's a Star Child, definitely.
Reminds me of another program. So why don't we do this, Solana? I know it's a little bit early. Let's take a little break, and when we come back, we'll talk some more and make another announcement. So you're listening to Space Boy Universe.
Do you not know what it is?
Well, I'm buffering in my mind because I'm trying to do three things at the same time, and this thing won't do what I'm asking. Okay, there we go. Yeah, you're listening to Space Boy Universe, a show where Solana likes to make fun of me.
Somebody's got to do it.
All right, we're back. And we appreciate you hanging in there, audience. And you're listening to Spaceboy Universe. And anything you want to add here, Solana?
What? Huh?
We're not closed out yet. We still got about 30 minutes to go here.
Well, didn't you say something about an announcement? Or?
Well, I didn't want to go right there, but if you want me to, I will. I guess I will be making an announcement. The SBU network will be premiering a pilot show, and it's going to be called Electronic Leftovers. It will be airing at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time on Sunday nights. It's basically me talking about my little things that I'm cruising along in the universe that doesn't get addressed in any other part of the quadrant. And so basically it's called Electronic Leftovers. And, you know, it is what it is. So there you go.
Yay.
Any thoughts on that, Solana?
Well, I made you the graphic for it.
Yeah. So I think there is a graphic. If you go to the SBU network, there is a graphic for that. And you should be able to check it out now. People are going to wonder about the goat on the picture, but, it is what it is.
Okay, you have to explain.
It's goat-tastic.
It's kind of interesting. I like the minimalist look of it all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's nothing out there. It's just black and white, and
it's basically you alone by yourself.
Yeah, just like you have a show on Friday nights once a month, and I will have a show. I don't know if this is it's a pilot episode. We'll see how it goes, how I handle myself, and
kind of thing. I don't even have to be here, so it's cool.
Yep. So it's Sunday nights at 8 p.m. That'll be 9 p.m. Central Standard, or 9 p.m. East. I hate these time zones.
God, I hate time
9
zones.
p.m. Eastern, 6 Pacific, I believe, on Sunday nights. And so tune in for that, for the premiere episode. Probably not this Sunday, but maybe next Sunday we'll have. I'm trying to tie up a few ends on my end, and we can go from there. Solana, back to you.
I apologize if you can actually hear me typing. The silicone squishy keyboard I've been using for the last year and a half, went on 2 years. I don't know what's going on with it, but it does not work good anymore. It is putting the plus sign in any field that you can type in, just endless. Like you can't make it stop, so I threw it on the floor. I'm having to actually use the keyboard on the laptop, but I'm trying to do it very slowly and quietly to type in the chat.
Eventually, one day, we'll get you another keyboard, silent keyboard, so that nobody can hear that razzmatazz.
But on the upside, my typing has improved.
How so?
No doubled characters and spellings.
Are you using the keyboard on the laptop?
Yeah, but I'm trying to be very slow and quiet about it.
Slow and quiet.
Yeah, you can't clean the contacts on a silicone keyboard. It's all floppy and rubbery. I think if you cut it, that's it. It's dead.
So, Solana, would you like to hear the intro for that new show?
Sure.
Here we go. The song is called The Goat, and here it is. Well, there you go. That's the theme song for the show I'm going to be doing called Electronic Leftovers, and the song is called The Goat. I know it's just a intro part, but eventually it'll be a full-fledged song. Might be on the next album, 2020, and surely going to be on a future episode of Space Boy Music, which airs on Friday nights when Sirlana doesn't have her first of the month show, that is.
Yeah, well, we won't have that again until like May 5th, which is Cinco de Mayo, which means I think we should both have margaritas, my partner and I, partner in crime.
So what did you think of that song, sis? Hopefully she liked it.
Yeah, we'll see what she says.
Okay. Let's see here. Back to you, Sirlana. Or...
Let me see,
did you save any nuggets of joy out there for us to...
Wait, hold on, let me look. Did we talk about all our banter stuff? Yeah? We didn't really talk... Yeah, I didn't have anything for 30-minute filler. She said, of course she liked it. Were you actually playing a guitar on that?
Yes, that's a real guitar. Well, it's virtual and real guitar. I mean, the lead parts are real. I used the virtual guitar to just back it up to give it some raunchiness, but beyond that, it's me playing guitar on there. So, and then of course there's a real live goat in there sampled, so that's why it's called The Goat. Well, it's the song was inspired by, I guess, last week's episode when I was complaining about going to get my hair cut, and the segment I did, What Gets My Goat. And so I thought, well, you know what? I really...
Oh, yes, the epic haircut rant.
It is amazing how things get created as far as music for me. So, I wanted something that was, kind of driven and, don't. And so that's what got created out of that. So out of that will come another song, which will go on the album. So, it's all a chain and a domino effect. So... Now I'm getting the request to step it up a half key. So
I have things I could talk about, but they happen at work, and I feel like that's not very professional of me to talk about. But dadgum, it's juicy stuff. I wish I could tell you about it. I did threaten to relay this insane dream I had this night / this morning if we lack for filler content.
Well, hey, there's nothing better to
unless
tell you.
You've got something better to do.
Well, let's hear your dream.
So when we had Patrick Sporer on, he's maybe this will just be for Patrick. He can listen to this. I had always heard that when we dream, it's our brain's way of working things out, processing information we've taken in over the day. And, well, that theory just goes to heck when it comes to my dreams. I don't know where my brain's pulling this crap from, but I had not been reading about this thing. I haven't been watching anything. I don't know. So, yeah, my dreams give people nightmares. So, I'll start with where I remember. It took place in somebody's house. And at this house, they were having this big party where other people were invited. And it was adults and kids and toddlers and babies and teenagers. Everybody kind of running around. It was a big party. But for some reason, the women were dressed like... in these elaborate long gowns of lace and cotton and linen, like from the 1800s, but they didn't conform to that style. And they seemed really overly happy to be there. It just didn't seem right. But it also was happening, now in modern times. It's very strange. But anyway, I'm not in this dream. I'm just like point of view camera or something. Mm-hmm. Well, while this party was going on and there were people outside playing in the lawn and it was a bright sunshiny day, in the house there was this group of unrelated tiny aliens. This is where it goes off the deep end.
Yeah, I thought the deep end was way back.
No, so these aliens were really, really small, and they weren't all the same. They were different species, different races, but somehow they all could interact with each other, and they stayed together. I didn't get the impression if the people in that house knew they were there because they were so small or what. Well, they decided they needed to get out of there before they were discovered, not necessarily by the people that live there, but by, let's say, like the men in black or government, whatever. So one of these aliens was just a human head, but like fit in the palm of your hand.
Mm-hmm.
And the back of his head had like a membrane that came out with 4 corners, so he could kind of like maneuver. And it had the voice of David Tennant. Don't know why. I haven't seen anything with David Tennant. Haven't watched anything with David Tennant. Don't know why. But that actually made it pretty hilarious. So it almost kind of seemed like an 80s, cheesy 80s movie, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So somehow he gets catapulted across the room and sticks to a window and then proceeds to fall down the window, just like, you know, that toy, it was an octopus and it was sticky and you could throw it at a wall, the wacky wall walker.
And they would, walk down the wall.
And then he came down like that, but he wasn't terribly injured. So they get back together and he's okay. And they're like, okay, we need to get out of here. So in the meantime, part of these aliens have befriended a couple of cockroaches that were hanging out there, and they could talk to them because they seem like they're higher life forms, the cockroaches, and the cockroaches is telling them the best way to maneuver for the house. But before they could get this information done, like the quote-unquote government men in black showed up and scooped up all the aliens. So they put these little aliens in what was basically an alien paddy wagon, where they had rounded up a bunch of other aliens of all kinds of all types, shapes, sizes, races. And because these other aliens had been in this vehicle longer, they had all started to go insane, and it manifested in different ways. So they take all these aliens to this warehouse, but it's this huge warehouse, but in the warehouse, you know, they had built like rooms and compartments in this warehouse. And when they get there, it's also like near a landing area for interdimensional and UFO craft. So there's constantly humans and hybrids and aliens going in and out of this one door. And you can see a bright light, but you can't really see what's beyond outside, like what they're coming in and out of. So there's like an upstairs to this place. And all the aliens, you could get the idea the aliens are scared. They have like an upstairs area that's quarantined for aliens that are ill because they can't handle it in our environment / atmosphere for whatever reasons, and they're all different kinds and races. So I can see, in the dream, I could see these different types of aliens in the sick ward, and there was a woman that was like, I don't know if she was full-on alien or hybrid, but she was about to give birth in the traditional way we know how. And because all these different races were on our planet, it meant that this other race of an alien who's used to encountering these other races, that they were able to pick up on the fact these specific aliens were on Earth. So that led them to Earth. They vectored in on Earth, and this other alien could just teleport interdimensionally straight into a room, a field, a closet, anything. Now, what was weird about this alien is it was shiny black, kind of like the xenomorph, solid shiny black, like a beetle. In fact, it had beetle-like features. It was low to the ground, but the legs were long and thick, more like a spider, but it was like armored like a beetle. And instead of having that appendage in the front like the beetles have, like that weird pinch your claw thing, they had a forward-facing appendage that was circular like a buzzsaw, but it was part of their body. It was still black. And what they could do is they could just sort of materialize out of nowhere, and they could take this buzzsaw appendage and they could rip through anything. They could rip through furniture, a wall, persons, aliens, and it just shred you to pieces. And everybody was freaking out because a couple of these aliens had gotten into the sick ward, and they were trying to get this pregnant woman, trying to defend her and keep her safe. And I mean, and this goes on and on and on and on, and then it goes into this whole other plot about these two psychic people who are a couple, an older couple, are trying to buy a building that used to be a restaurant from this guy who's also a psychic. I don't have the first clue where this crap comes from. But my gosh, that's just the stuff I remember. Before all that, there was a bunch of dreaming going on, and after these two sections, there was a whole lot more behind it. I was just dreaming nonstop from whenever I fell asleep to when you came in there and told me, hey, it's already 10:30.
Well, it's always fascinating to hear some of your dreams, because I feel like for example, when you had the zombie dream.
I have plenty of zombie dreams.
I've never had any zombie dreams, and I watch Walking Dead. I've watched many the Night of the Living Dead. I've watched many zombie movies.
I don't.
And somehow, for some reason, you don't, and you've had many dreams about it.
The last zombie dream I had was sort of interesting. They took like the concept of the Walking Dead, where the humans are still grouped together and they're living together in pockets for mutual survival. Yet it also was a mashup of the Hunger Games, where because resources are limited, they just would vote somebody in their group to go. It's like, okay, it's your turn to go out and fight zombies today. Kill as many as you can, and if you get killed, so be it, because that's one less mouth to feed. That was kind of an interesting dream. So, don't know where that came from.
I mean, have you kind of looked to, or tried to, figure out why you're having dreams like this?
Leanne says it's just because I'm highly creative unconsciously. That could be it. I don't really see the need to dig any deeper into the meaning of anything. I just think it's just...
It is what it is.
Random garbage that my brain dredges up.
Now, see, I'm kind of the opposite when it comes to that. I think really my mind is trying to tell me something, and, and I try to find meaning in whatever my mind is telling me.
Well, if that's what floats your boat, you do that. Of course, I just roll my eyes and keep on going with my dreams. As long as your dreams don't slap me in the face or something.
Well, I do know that you get concerned because you think that there's something wrong. I'm dreaming when I'm asleep. I tend to say, you say that I sound like I'm in pain in some kind of way.
Mm-hmm, moaning and groaning like you're fighting or being beat up in your dreams or something, I don't know what goes on sometimes, but you sound like you're having a struggle, like an epic battle that's going on. And I'm just like, just keep that over there on your side. Don't get into my quadrant and start messing with me.
Don't bother me because I'm trying to sleep. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, I've already got the cat on me. She's...
Well, that is funny on its own. The cat sleeps right on top of you.
She tries to get as close as she can to my head. She was doing that last night. She was creeping up my shoulder and purring. I was like, really?
But
what are you doing over there?
Well, I'm looking for topics, and I was letting you tell your story. So I just came across another picture of the Star Trek Enterprise D that looks like Van Gogh or Van Gogh.
Was cool.
So just
saw that on Facebook.
So What do we have for the future of the show, Sir Lana?
The show?
Yeah, I mean, we can do a little housekeeping before because we're starting to get close to the...
Let's see. Next week is the 15th.
Mm-hmm.
That is just pop culture topic. So we did go see the movie Life, which is getting a lot of criticism about how its plot is too close to that of Prometheus.
Mm-hmm. Well, don't go too far into that because we're going to talk about that.
So we're going to talk about that.
Mm-hmm. Pulp Culture Night next week.
Hope I won't forget by then. Having seen the movie, forget all about it. And then, gosh, it's very close to Comic Palooza time. I didn't realize. And then the 22nd, we'll talk about, I guess, alien races. But honestly, all I have to do is just talk about the dreams I have.
Let's see here. I believe Patrick Sporer just sent us an email.
That quick?
It's that quick.
I better check that.
Yeah, he's mentioning something about your birthday, and
he's already
pick
emailed us. The show isn't even over.
He said David Tennant is a Scottish actor and voice actor. He is best known for his role as the 10th Doctor on the British TV series Doctor Who.
Wait a
various
minute.
Other born.
Look at his birthday.
I'm looking at his birthday.
Oh my gosh!
So you share a birthday with the Doctor.
Jealous?
No, I'm not jealous.
He was born April 18th, 1971, so he's only 1 year older than me.
Never a dull moment when it comes to Patrick Sporer, and that's why we love him. And I'm not just saying that because I'm on the air, but he is. Let me use it again. He's a righteous dude.
Yes, but I don't think there's anything to learn from this other than I've got to whack his brain.
He has a sweet profile too. Yeah, he's we appreciate having Patrick in our life because he is a wealth of information, and
he says your dreams are no accident.
Yeah, see, I think what it is you just don't put any value in that, and
it's
I really think. See, for me, I'm really tapped into believing that our dreams are a kind of like a window to the other alternative universe
of
ourselves.
Did you ever see this? Was it French animated film? Was it called Fantastic Planet? Where this alien race kept humans as pets because they were really large, and they're maybe humans are about this smaller than a Barbie doll, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
And one of these male humans is a pet, and they have to wear this collar. And the collar, they can activate the collar, and the collar will pull the human back to wherever the device is. And he runs away, and of course he gets recalled by the collar, and it gets stuck on something, and it finally gets him free, and he finds a wild band of humans to live with.
It sounds familiar.
Yeah, that's what. But in that show, this animation where when the aliens are learning or sleeping or dreaming, their consciousness goes into some kind of bubble, and they all kind of float around on the planet.
That's fascinating.
I haven't seen it in a long, long, long time, but this is the kind of thing they would show on Night Flight back in the day.
Well, it's funny you bring that up because I had a dream recently where I was at of all things, a Blockbuster video-like place looking for a video to rent or two. And I was in the sci-fi / horror area. And so you just reminded me of that. Speaking of aliens and stuff, a good friend of the show, Russ Emanuel, sent us an email.
Oh, yeah, I didn't see the email.
Thanking us for promoting his past films, The Occupants and The Assassin's Apprentice. And he's running a new campaign involving Star Trek actors Sean Kinney, Gary Lockwood, Hannah Hatae, Olivia Abu. I can never.
Diabo?
Diabo. Thank you.
Well, didn't she play the female?
She played a Q. Yes. It's a film campaign video on March 23rd. We planned Indigo campaign around March 5th, May 5th, to promote the new television series plot Alien Cross, written and produced by Sean and Takai and Kenny and myself, attached as a director. So, we want to promote that. In fact, if you want to learn more about it, go to aliencross.com to get more details. And so, we will definitely promote that for him because he was so gracious to come on our show.
Yeah. I like him because he likes...
I know.
Robert Picardo.
Yeah, it won't be too much longer before I'm bald like him.
And he's so charming.
So anything else on the agenda, my dear?
Just stay tuned. We'll keep you updated on when and where we might be at Comic Palooza. If anybody happens to go and is listening in the Houston area, where we'll be.
And soon we'll be announcing how you can get, I guess, hopefully some discounted tickets or just tickets in general, and and promoting that, and that's going to be May the 12th, 13th, and 14th, and that's going to be
interesting.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be exciting, and we would hope that some of our listening.
We're going to by Monday. We're going to be just blithering idiots.
I hope that some of our listening audience can come out there. And hopefully we'll make some new friends, new contacts, and we'll set up, I really think that Comic Palooza this year is going to set up again what the year will expand out to be. And, we'll make new friends, and it's going to be fun. I'm excited because we're on the floor, and, we'll be in the middle of things, and easy access to get to things.
Yes, that's going to make the experience, I think, even better.
Mm-hmm. So, Sirlana, if you are okay with this, and I'm okay with this, do you want to say goodnight?
I could do that.
All right. Well, on behalf of Spaceboy Universe and the Spaceboy Universe Network, we wish you adieu, and we will see you next time.
Spaceboy Universe is hosted by Spaceboy and Sirlana. Executive producer is Sirlana. Social media producer is Dennis Koch. Associate producer is Lee Ann Cordes. Music production is Spaceboy of SpaceboyMusic.com. Special thanks goes out to Lee Ann K, K28, Mark S, and Bob N. This has been a Spaceboy Universe production. Support the universe by exploring Spaceboy Universe with Spaceboy and Sirlana. Sweet dreams, Space Cadets.